Yes, we're back. This is normally the point where I would say it's Friday night, it's 9 o'clock, and you know what that means. But tonight, it doesn't mean what you think it means. It's something different. It's not that Friday feeling. Ask and you shall receive. And believe me, I've heard you all season. I've seen the calls for it. I've seen the multiple comments. Phil, where's Bustalgia? When's Bustalgia coming back? I had plans to do multiple Bustalgia episodes this season, but every time an international break came along, something wild was going on at our football club, and I had to talk about current events. But no, it's all said and done. And my God, what a season we're going to talk about. Because yes, we're going to go over the entire season in as condensed a way as I can. I mean, those who've been with us for a good while that remember us on the old channel, they will know that these episodes can go quite a while. And this season's gave us a lot of content. But yes, let's say for anyone that's new as well, you may be looking and going, Bustalgia? What the hell? What sort of stupid name is that? You'd be right. It is a bit of a daft name, but it's my daft name. So I quite like it. It's kind of stuck after this time. But yes, it was just me and Russell Bhoys years ago, just spitballing ideas about a name and then said Bustalgia. And then we just laughed at it and went, you know what? It's stupid enough. It might just work. Because yes, it is a retro look back show, where we will just say I've got loads of previous episodes still up there on YouTube that you can find, looking back at many Celtic seasons. But as we got to the sort of tail end on the Boise bus, we began looking at recent seasons. So it might not seem terribly nostalgic to just go back a year, but hey, if you discover this video in 3 years' time, then hello, future selves. I hope life is going a lot better than the year 2029, and it'd be quite nostalgic at that point. But yeah, season 2025-26, Liam, are you looking forward to opening up all the mad memories of the last 10 months again tonight?
If you're watching this in 3 years' time, I hope we've got a manager and a new board.
I hope so as well.
And you're just laughing at us thinking, or it's got worse. It's got much worse.
Oh, no.
No, great. Thanks for bringing me on again tonight, Phil. And never underestimate the power and the novelty of a daft name for anything, hence the Punk Dog Warlord vibe and things like that. But what a season, and you know what? Maybe we can be a bit cathartic. Maybe we can go through and just sort of share, amongst the chat and all that. Was it as bad as we're making it out? Or is it worse?
Good point. Actually,
or is it worse? I never anticipated at the beginning or like going through the season. Like this has been, Vinnie Jones says at the end of the, I think Snatch or the first Lock and Stock and Two Smoking Barrels film, last line was, "It's been emotional. Bloody hell, it's been emotional." The emotions have just been going everywhere, and that's probably the best way to sum this season. It wasn't as much about the football as what it needs to be, but my God, everybody was fighting for our attention and not in the right ways. Nicholson, Hargraves, Wilson, Dermot, the spawn of Dermot. All of them fighting for their wee piece on this Bustalgia episode, and I hope they get the recognition they deserve.
Yeah, well, they're definitely featuring in there. Spoiler, no surprise. But yes, it has been up, down, and everywhere in between this past 9 or 10 months of our lives. I had a lot less grey hair on my chinny chin a year ago as well. But Celtic have certainly put through the ringer. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to go back and look at it all. And you're right. I mean, you are right to a point about was it as bad as we think? Now that we can breathe again and can sort of calm down. But yeah, I say we'll open up all these memories. I've got quite extensive notes for it. So yes, we shall be diving right into it. So first and foremost, of course, do all that good stuff, folks. It may be a different show tonight, but it's still the same old mantra. So you know what to do. Hit the old like button, helps out in the old algorithm, the traction on YouTube. Spread word of Bustalgia. Let people know that this episode is out there now. Obviously that helps as well, like, and gives us interactions, because YouTube will always push an interactive channel. Hit the subscribe button as well if you haven't done so yet. We are on 1,900 something, I think it is at the moment, so we're going along nicely. 1967 would be a nice wee milestone to reach pretty soon, and then 2000 obviously after that, so things are moving along at a nice pace. But yeah, hit the bell notification as well. Be reminded when we're on the road. Obviously, we'll be trying to do some content as well during the pre-season. The World Cup's coming up. There are a lot of Celtic players going over to North America for it, so we'll be keeping tabs on them with some stuff. And we're still waiting on the official announcement on what Celtic are doing manager-wise. So there's still a lot of news still to come out. So keep your eye out for all that stuff as well coming. Get involved in our comment section tonight. Who is in our comments for this Nostalgia episode? We have got Sean South is in, Patrick Kerrigan, Kev1, William O'Toole, Alison is in, Chris M. Who else have we got? Nick's in there. Aye, the shows up really. It's going to be a long, long night, folks. So, buckle up. So, we got Patrick McLaughlin here, Gabby Boy, Graham Tyrrell, of course. It's Friday night. He's here. Paul Boyle. I haven't checked it out yet. Everybody so far. Ian McIntosh is in. I think everyone so far that said hello. Yeah, I think I have. But yeah, get involved as well throughout the night, folks. Let us know what you thought about certain moments during the season. We'll open up all these suppressed memories again. And of course, you can always catch up on our audio as well on the SoundCloud website in the description below. And you can become a Boys in the Rust member as well for $1.99 from people diesel on the tank, ticking over nicely as we head towards the new season. So, Liam, let's do what we normally do in the Bustalgia with the Bustalgia format. We'll do obviously what was happening in the world a year ago. So yeah, we're just going to go back. Go to the time machine and go back to last summer. So the first thing I always concentrate on is what's going on in football. Where was it at that point in time? Who was the big winners in the end of the 24-25 season? So obviously in England, Liverpool won the title. They won it, and Crystal Palace won the FA Cup, and Newcastle won the League Cup. So yeah, a few teams are getting their first trophy in a good while. Obviously in Scotland, we had won the Scottish Premiership again. We'd also won the League Cup early in the season, defeated Rangers on a penalty shootout, and we drew treble. Obviously, we lost Aberdeen in a penalty shootout, an absolutely traumatic game. The team just running on empty at that point. There was some warning signs setting in as last season headed towards a close. But yeah, that final was a real warning sign of things to come. Yeah, we'll obviously be talking about how the pre-season unfolded in due course. Also around the continent, other big winners were Barcelona won the league in Spain. It was Napoli, Scott McTominay's Napoli, who ended up winning the Italian Serie A. Bayern Munich won the Bundesliga, as they normally do. PSG won the French League One. Sporting Lisbon won the Portuguese League, and in the Eredivisie in the Netherlands, it was PSV Eindhoven. The big European winners were Champions League, Paris Saint-Germain, absolutely ragdolled into Milan in the final. They beat 5-0. Big Ange won Europa on Hotspur, and then he gets sacked right after it. Mental. But yeah, he won the Europa, beating Man United 1-0 on Hotspur, lifting the trophy. And they finished 17th that season, and in this season, they finished 17th again. So yeah, didn't work out too well for them, did it, Tottenham? And in the Conference League as well, Chelsea romped the victory against Real Betis. And there was, Liam, I don't know if you remember this, there was the World Cup last summer. It was a Club World Cup. Nobody really cared. Donald Trump cared, though, because he would not get off the stage, if you remember right, when he presented the trophy. A very bemused-looking Cole Palmer was like, what are you doing? But yeah, Chelsea beat Paris Saint-Germain 3-0 in the final. So what then happened in terms of what was going on in news headlines last summer? The Pope. There was a new Pope. It was an American one from Chicago, Pope Leo the 14th, I want to say, maybe. Maybe I'm wrong with the number there, but yeah, Pope Leo became Pope in May of 2025. Donald Trump was up to all sorts of shenanigans. He was always up to some sort of shenanigans. What was he doing this time last year? He was having meetings with Vladimir Putin in Alaska while implementing all of his tariffs, still having a massive effect on us to this day. And also as well, his pal from Israel, Netanyahu, struck first against Iran this time last year as well. You've got to wonder if that will come back to haunt us at any point in the near future. It will. In terms of like pop culture, what was going on in the music charts in the UK. So when the season kicked off on the 3rd of August, basically, Justin Bieber was top of the UK singles chart. Alex Warren was top of the album chart, and the number one film at the UK box office was the new Fantastic Four movie starring Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Hudgens. Now, world transfers, Liam. Who was making the big headlines? The type of stuff that Celtic aren't doing. Who's going out there and spending money? Who was making the big headlines in world football last summer? Liverpool were making all the headlines, mate. Alexander Isak signed, and Florian Wirtz, they broke the English Premier League record twice in the one window. They also signed Jeremy Frimpong, somebody we know very well. They signed Milos Kerkez and Hugo Ekitike, among many. Newcastle replaced Alexander Isak with Nick Waltermader and Johan Visser. Man United got in on the spending. They brought in Benjamin Sesko, Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo. Trent Alexander-Arnold headed off to Real Madrid from Liverpool. The would-be Premier League champions, Arsenal, added Victor Gyökeres, Martin Zubimendi and Eberechi Eze. Manchester City's big summer signing was Tijani Reinders from AC Milan. Luis Diaz went from Liverpool to Bayern Munich. And Spurs, after sacking Ange and getting a European trophy, would add Xavi Simons and Mohamed Kudus. So that's all the teams that know how to spend. Let's now look, Liam, at a team that don't know how to spend. Let's talk about, a bit closer to home, the Scottish pre-season last summer with Celtic and what they did. So if you need a reminder, this was Celtic's transfer window. Kieran Tierney came in from Arsenal on a free transfer. Benjamin Negrin came in from Northumberland. Callum Osmond arrived for a developmental fee from Fulham. Hayato Inamura and Shin Yamada came in from the J-League and were criticised right away by then manager Brendan Rodgers, particularly Inamura, who he just said was miles off it and would need a loan. And I don't know about you, Liam, but were you getting vibes about Marion Shved? Was there red flags waving when Brendan Rodgers was putting sound bites out like that?
Oh, 100%. Especially as well when this was one of our new Doctor of Football signing as well. He went over to Japan and that's what he came back with. My God, that's like sending somebody the messages, and they come back, they've spent all the money, they get no change, and they didn't get anything that you wanted either. I mean, those were two shocking signings. But in hindsight, at that time, I'm thinking, okay, well, give them a chance. They didn't look that great in paper. They weren't like throwing out significant numbers. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a lot different. It was just like, oh, we'll just go over to Japan and grab a couple of players, and surely one of them would be a Daizan or Kyogo or even Hitachi at that point. They were nowhere near it. No. And then when you look, when we got Kyogo was an established player. He was playing with the Japanese team. Hitachi was up and coming. And Daizan was a Japanese player of the year when he came to us. So there was a massive, massive difference in golf in what we were getting and what we went and bought. And it just looked like somebody wanted a holiday in Japan. And that looked a thing. And when he came back, he didn't do his due diligence, didn't do anything. And that just sort of started the ball rolling for this season that was crap. And by the way, if you're out there in the chat, come on, give some. If this season was a movie, what would the headline be? What would it be called?
Okay, good topic. Yeah, get those in throughout the show, guys. But the conveyor belt of crap did not end with Inamura and Shin Yamada. Oh no, there's more. Jamai Simpson-Pusey came in on a loan from Manchester City. Remember him? There's an interesting. Again, if people watch this in 3-4 years' time, they'd be like, "Who? Who's that again?" Jamai Simpson-Pusey. We also added Marcello Sarachi on loan from Boca Juniors. He would be one of the few bright sparks from the summer transfer window. And then, of course, very late in the transfer window, the saga that nobody wanted. Michel-Ange Balikwisha joined during the last week of the window. I believe a year ago, I predicted sometime in the middle of June last year on an episode of Friday Feeling. I says, I've got a funny feeling he's going to be with us next season and it will go down to the last week of the transfer window. And it bloody did. And you know what? I'm raging that I was right. So raging I was right because, my word, what an anticlimax he was. But we also added Sebastian Tenekte as well on deadline night, if I remember correctly. 5 million from Hammarby to mixed results. And a very crucial signing. At the time, obviously, we were putting our minds back to it, Liam. At the time, we were all kind of raging about it. But in the end, this guy would play a huge, huge part. Kelechi Iheanacho on a free transfer from Sevilla because he had his contract terminated due to fitness issues and a proper pre-season. We did try to sign him in January of 2025, but he went to Middlesbrough on loan and knocked us back. So it was kind of like, oh, now we're settling for sloppy seconds or maybe even sloppy thirds in this case. But yeah, he would come in. He was obviously very off it in terms of fitness, but with hindsight, he turned out no bad in the end.
Well, Big Kelechi ended up becoming a bit of a cult hero. I really hope we sign him for next season as well. But you're right, you know, the Balikwisha one, you know, you talked about chasing the Iheanacho. The fact that we, you know, it was leaked that we really had to chase Balikwisha, that he was the one that was holding out, that we had to send a delegation to go and meet with his people. He's got people. I find that shocking, you know, and it just shows you what a different window this was when we were out there, you know, trying to convince marginal players that don't really have that great a record, that we were the team that they should have. And yeah, how did that turn out? What did he play? He played like maybe a game and a half of football total. Did he even get a full 90 minutes with Celtic this year? Maybe so,
No.
maybe no, even that, right? So he was one of the other ones as well that we signed this year that just came from nowhere and just stunk of bad recruitment. And you could see our policy just falling apart at that point, you know. I didn't even have high, you know when some players come in and you want to say, oh, give him a chance. I had no hope for that guy at all. Anything I'd seen in his highlight reel or anything just said to me, for 5 million. God, I'll look at the players that we've knocked back because we didn't want to go over 4 or 3 or anything like that, who went on to have great careers and stuff. And then here we are paying over the odds for a guy that didn't really have that commitment. And one thing about Celtic is you've got to play with your heart as well. You see, you know, and the players that get that and understand the expectations for the fans are the ones that do well. Who knows? Well, we've got him for a while. You know, I don't think he's a guy we're going to be on load. You know, if we change the system, we do something, I don't know, will we get a tune out of this guy maybe in his second year like we did with Nicholas Gooden? Who knows? But just pure recruitment all there. That's a list. Other than Iheanacho, nobody there really. You know, Sriracha, I liked him as well. You know, but I was thinking, oh, you know, we're going back there to the same as Burnaby, you know. And then Burnaby did well when he left us as well.
He's done very well, yeah.
Yeah, you know, so, yeah, who knows? And I'm absolutely shocked that we've not made an approach for Sriracha. His manager came out this week, or somebody in his team came out and said, no, Celtic haven't even approached him or made an offer. And I think that's shocking because without that run that he made to set up our goal, our second goal against Hearts, we wouldn't be having as favourable, you know, we wouldn't have a happy ending to this Bustalgia, put it that way.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't have. But I'll tell you something that's is going really well right now. Liam, see your question that you've just put into the chat. Do you want to hear some of the amazing?
Aye.
So Chris M, I've got it being Silence of the Bams. That's his one. Chris M has also contributed Clown World, a Celtic story. Paddy Mack has went for the very simple scary movie. It certainly was. Most of the games were like that. You know, I just couldn't watch it. What's it? Oh, by the way, shows how both flew over the cuckoo's nest. That's a good one. That's a winner so far. I like that. Paul Boyle, Groundhog Day. Aye. And it would repeat itself in the January window as well. Certainly is Groundhog Day. What else have we got here? Oh, Sean said here 56 steps. I like what he did there. That's a good one. 56 steps. Gary Simpson, The Sound of Silence. Another good one. Yeah, I like that. Sean Southman just smashed here. All's Quiet on the East End Front. Another good one. I like that. Paul Boyle, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It certainly was that from start to finish. Jesus Christ. Graham Tyrrell, in fairness, this could apply to the last month of the season, the Warriors, because my word, they had to be Warriors in that run-in. Jesus Christ, they could not afford a single mistake. Oh, and Graham Tyrrell again, The Curious Case of Wilfried Nancy. Oh, we'll get to that. Oh, we will get to him. Don't you worry about that. He's coming up very, very soon. Oh, horrible. But yeah, that was Celtic's incomings. Now, Liam, do you want some good news, mate? Do you want some good news? Outgoings at Celtic. Greg Taylor, Greg Taylor, Liam, your favourite, the man himself, sound the clacks, everybody. Yes, Greg Taylor finally left Celtic after driving Liam up the wall for X amount of years. He was calling him out even when Ange was the manager, and everyone said Greg Taylor was fantastic. There, of course, was a narrative from some fans out there, and they do still exist, Liam. That apparently Kieran Tierney is a downgrade on Greg Taylor. I just cannot see it. I cannot see it. But yeah, Greg Taylor did the part. He did do fine, but I always felt like we could do better than fine, and I think Kieran Tierney is better than fine. Who else left? The Baniac left. Scott Bain finally departed Celtic. He went to Falkirk. Nicholas Kuhn was the biggest departure. He went to Como in Italy for about 17 million quid, I think it was. Mike Nawrocki joined Hanover, who I think were in the Bundesliga second tier at that point. Gustav Lagerbielke, he will play a part in our season. He joined Braga. Lewis Palmer went off on loan to Lech Poznan. Kwon, the Kwon man, remember him? He signed for Nantes and Ligue 1. They got relegated this season, and the fans ran on the park and tried to attack the players. Their own players, not like Celtic players who allegedly attacked Hearts players. No. The Nantes fans ran on to attack their own players for getting relegated. You think Scotland's wild? Jesus Christ. In France, man, they're just built differently. But he went to Nantes. And Marco Tilio. Remember Marco Tilio? I know you don't. Nobody remembers him. Rapid Vienna, he joined. And then, of course, on deadline day, Adam Eder departed for Swansea City. We still, of course, hadn't replaced Kyogo at that point. But he was allowed to leave. And, of course, a very interesting twist. The Yang gang, it was nearly over before it started. He was halfway out the door to Birmingham City. As the story goes, apparently Nick was ignoring his phone calls that day. Birmingham got rather annoyed with him and signed Patrick Roberts instead. But yeah, Yang ended up sticking around. And again, sliding doors, like we talked about Ian Acho, all these wee things, the butterfly effect and all that. Maybe a good thing that Yang did stick around, because in the end, we managed to finally get a tune out on Liam.
You know, that you look at some of the outgoings and you look at the ones that have done well. You know, the one that just does my head in is Lagerbielke. And I watched him because, you know, I actually got to see them because they actually did okay, you know, in the European games, and we got to see him playing against us. And I could never understand what Rodgers didn't see in him. Anytime he was on, he made great contributions. And it's just one of these. Palmer's another one. I think Palmer was a lot better than what we ended up getting replacing him with. Well, we don't know. He's going to come back unless we make a deal with Poznan. But I think this will lead into probably the next bit, but I think you could start seeing that Rodgers didn't really have, I don't know, he just didn't have the pulse of what the team and who could play in what positions. I think this was a year we clearly saw who Rodgers' favourites were, or at that point, if he was actually fully wired into the club at that point. You know, you asked me after, I think, one of the first games of the Friday feeling we did of the league, and we were talking about the outgoings, and you mentioned my wee favourite, Greg Taylor.
Gregory,
and nothing against the boy in that, but my God, I just thought he was weak in everything, and it just looked like for me, Greg Taylor looked like just sort of like the downgrading of Celtic, where somehow there was guys out there that were convincing themselves that this guy was, you know, like a proper left back. And as you said earlier, challenging Kieran Tierney for a spot that Kieran Tierney's going to have to fight for it. No. Kieran Tierney at left back is just the same as like Elliot Page in the Odyssey right now, you know, playing Achilles. I don't see it, you know, and I thought it was a bit powder puff. And he always just rang about and that. And, you know, but you asked me, he says, well, who's going to get it this year? And you said, is it going to be Liam Scales? And I went, no. And I had an answer for you. And
it was Brendan Rodgers.
I said it was going to be Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah.
Because all the signs were there early that he wasn't fully engaged. The bullshit meter was going off the charts every time he talked in that. And that was,
Aye. But well, anyway, the thing is, and you know, after our business was done, this is of course Brendan Rodgers was starting to make noise about being unhappy and needing quality. Quality was the word they kept hammering home. Even Callum McGregor, the club captain, was also sharing his frustrations publicly and saying about, you know, the team needs help, we need recruitment in. But yeah, that was our work. Now, what I also do at this part of Bustalgia as well is you've got to keep an eye on the competition. So my God, if you think Celtic had a bit of a a transfer window. Let's see what Rangers did. Let's see what the enemy did across the road. Now, if you remember, Liam, if you cast your mind back a year, before Russell Martin got the job, it seemed that the Yanks, the Americans that took over, the 49ers group, were going to appoint David Ancelotti, Carlo Ancelotti's son, who was one of his assistants at Real Madrid, and going by the hyperbole in the newspapers, he was Carlo Ancelotti's secret weapon. Now, forget the fact, right, that Carlo Ancelotti is one of the best managers of his generation. He's won the Champions League multiple times. He's won La Liga, Bundesliga. He's won all these titles, Serie A, right? But apparently his son, as one of his assistants, has been like his ace up the sleeve recently, and I don't know if that's the case. But anyway, the usual overblown stuff about how great this guy is and how he's wanted by all sorts of different clubs. In the end, they did not get David Ancelotti. They were supposed to be getting him, and Luka Modric might be coming to Ibrox from Rangers, from Real Madrid to join Rangers. That was all the stories we were getting. They didn't get that, though. They got Russell Martin instead, who was fresh off an absolutely stinking Premier League campaign with Southampton, where he got sacked like midway through the season for being too stubborn. A manager being too stubborn. We've seen that plenty of times in football, where he would not change his ways. What worked for him in the English Championship to get Southampton up, that was all well and good, but he was going to the Premier League. And regardless of what you may look at the Premier League and talk about being boring and tourist league and all that, the quality of players in that league is unbelievable. And you cannot go up with Southampton from the Championship and just think, we'll just keep playing the same attacking way that we're playing in the Championship. We'll just go and do it in the Premier League. No, they get absolutely pistol whipped. And yeah, they were sitting at the bottom when he gets sacked. And he's doing podcast interviews talking about how he still felt he was right. A bit similar to what Wilfried Nancy is doing just now. Still believing that he could do something. But yeah, Rangers ended up appointing Russell Martin, and over here in this side of Glasgow, we're all just like, yes, that's exactly what we wanted to see. Because yeah, it didn't strike any of us with any fear at all. But who did they bring in? They brought in Gassama, Mikey Moore, Oliver Antman, Bojan Majowski, Yusuf Chamiti, Derek Cornelius, Nasser Giga, Theo Asgard, Emmanuel Fernandez, Joe Rothwell. God, I was putting these notes together. I was like, fuck, Joe Rothwell, can I remember him? Max Aarons, and they brought in Lyle Cameron as well. Heading out of the revolving door at Ibrox was Yanis Hadji, Tom Lawrence, Robin Proper, Hefty, Leon Balogun, Ben Davis, Rizvan Yilmaz, Cyril Dessers, and Oscar Coates. Now, another team, of course, to keep an eye on. It wasn't just Rangers. There was an intriguing subplot last summer where Brighton owner Tony Bloom decided to invest in Scottish football, and he decided to put some money into Hearts, and he gave them access to this Jonestown analytics database that Brighton utilised, and it's one of the reasons why Brighton have been a consistent success in England, the way they're able to find players at low prices, develop them, turn them into something, and then probably sell them to Chelsea for about 100 million quid. That seems to be what they do. Then you just go and buy another one and just do it all again. So Hearts had this. They also appointed Derek McInnes as manager. Tony Bloom made an interesting comment that most of Scottish football scoffed at, where he said that within 10 years, or within 5 years, Hearts will be challenging for the league. And within 10 years, they'll have won it. I say most of Scottish football just kind of went, that'll be right. Well, did we know? But yeah, obviously the big signings for them was they brought in Claudio Braga. I've hammered this point home a lot in recent months, for less than 500,000 from a Norwegian second division team. Now, if Celtic had went for a player of that profile, you know the meltdown that would come from the Celtic fans, and you can't blame them. Like, their track record is showing that we're a bit close to that, but because it came through this database, there was a bit of intrigue there. Turned out Claudio Braga was fantastic. If we'd signed him for that price from that club, and he had the same output for us, you'd be like, Jesus Christ, Celtic, you've totally outdone yourself with that one. So obviously they brought him in. They also brought in Kizridis, who was playing in Slovakia on a free transfer, the Greek winger. They brought in, is it McEntee, the centre-back? He was playing for Walsall. He ended up scoring the winning goal against us in a game this season. And obviously their goalkeeper, Schwallow, was playing for Union Berlin in the Bundesliga. So they added a few players in. They obviously added Derek McInnes. But yeah, this time last year, there was a lot of noise coming out of Tynecastle, but nobody was really taking it seriously. It was the usual. Heard all this before. But of course, another team you might want to keep your eye on in the 25-26 season is Motherwell. Motherwell appointed a guy named Jens Bertel Askew. You've got to wonder what will happen there with that one. In terms of pre-season friendlies, Celtic were chasing a treble in the pre-season, Liam. We were chasing a treble of pre-season cups. The Cork City Cup, the Adidas Trophy, and the Como Cup. We won 2 out of 3. As Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. We beat Cork City and we stuffed Newcastle United 4-0 at Celtic Park to win the Adidas Trophy. We got Horstal in the Como Cup. We lost 5-1 to Ajax and drew 1-1 with Al Ali. The interesting thing about the Newcastle game was the Celtic board, the first of many faux pas this season. They had the audacity to charged season ticket holders, I think it was like 30 quid for a ticket for the Newcastle friendly, and a lot of season tickets like myself were like, I would pay enough. I'm not paying 30 quid to go watch a friendly. So they ended up selling 10,000 tickets to the Newcastle fans who came up in their droves, only to watch them get beat 4-0. I think Liam Scales and Johnny Kenny scored that day as well. But yeah, a resounding victory. But again, you've just beat a Premier League team who've won the Carabao Cup, their first trophy in years. So you're like, oh, maybe we're on the right track here, 4-0 against Newcastle. We must be doing something right. But that was the pre-season wrapped up. So now we head into the main season. Brendan Rodgers at this point in time is, of course, still the Celtic manager. And in an interesting turn of events, the season started how it ended in terms of the fixtures. The last two fixtures we played in the 24-25 season was Aberdeen away and St Mirren at home, with the last two league games. This season we would start with St Mirren at home and Aberdeen away. And it took us quite a while. You and I did the post-match show for the St Mirren one. It's the only game that Terry missed this season. He couldn't do the post-match because he was in Lanzarote, I think. But yeah, it was a quite underwhelming showing against St Mirren, where it took us to 88 minutes and Luke McCown would eventually score. And it was kind of setting the tone for the season to come. But again, at that point in time, you just think, okay, we've got off to a winning start. It was a bit of a slog, but we got there in the end. And then the next week, obviously, we got to Pataudry. There was a bit of anxiety in the air because they beat us in the cup final. They're going to be right up for this. But Aberdeen would have a stinking season. Jimmy Tellin, who a year ago was like the darling of Scottish football, absolutely stunk the gaff out this season. We beat Aberdeen pretty handily 2-0. Obviously, Benjamin Negrin scored the first one. I think Hattati scored a nice goal that night. That afternoon, he pinged one in off the crossbar. But yeah, obviously, we're 2 games in, 2 victories, 3 goals, none conceded. And then I remember the Friday night game that followed after against Falkirk in the League Cup. We won 4-1. I thought we were great that night. And again, you're starting to feel like, okay, this has now got a vibe of this time last year, because the way we started the season before, Liam, we were really motoring. I felt after that Falkirk game, okay, even Alistair Johnson scored a brilliant goal that night. Remember, he intercepted it on the sort of final third, and then he went in bent it on his left foot. And again, you're like, okay, we're playing some nice stuff here. So at that point in time, I was like, right, we'll be fine this season. Because Rangers had already dropped points, I think, in their first 2 league games. They drew Motherwell, and they drew with either Falkirk or Dundee at home. So again, you're like, this will be a scoosh, man. We're flying already.
I thought this season when we came out and we played against St Mirren and Aberdeen, that they were going to be 2 of the better teams this year. I thought Motherwell, I wasn't expecting much for them, because they sold their marquee player this summer in Lennon Miller. And, and I thought they'd probably go down there. St Mirren, I thought, had a really good run last year. And then Aberdeen beating us in the cup final. I thought that would spur them on as well. And when we played those 2 games, and when we struggled, I was thinking it was just, well, these teams are obviously up in their game. They're actually getting better. That was not the case. These 2 teams, were battling for relegation. And by the way, congratulations to St Mirren for staying up. And it was a late substitution with my future family member, Mark O'Hara, coming on and helping change that game. So on the buddies.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it was an interesting league, and as you're saying, the way it started off as well, I noticed as well that our play, we looked void. Like when we were scoring goals in pre-season, we could see right away that we were struggling. We were struggling with our shape. We were struggling to create our chances, all that sort of stuff, and you could just desperately see in those early games. We needed a striker. We needed a target man, a focal point, somebody to get on them. I think we were still playing Maeda on the wing at that point as well. Yeah. And the big significant thing that came back, we have vengeance this year. And, just like COVID or any other shite virus you can name, the horseshoe of death came back to Celtic, and the amount of I'd love to see the stats this year on the amount of passes we played backwards rather than forwards. I think it would be very, very close to the same. Liam Scales, I imagine, passed more backward passes than he did forward this year. You could bet money on that.
Oh yeah, that's a definite. But I'm pretty sure there was a stat as well where whoever was playing through the middle for us as the main striker didn't score a goal until I think Ian Atchell scored a penalty in the late against Kilmarnock. I think because we started seeing Adam Eder up front, and he looked so off it. so off. I mean, I loved Adamida. I did like him, and but the way he started this season, it was like he looked miles off it. But then to let him go and not try and replace him with an out striker at the time was just bad, because obviously we were linked with Kasper Dolberg, and that deal ended up being pie in the sky. That fell through. But yeah, he was also, it's going to be the start of the season. So we've got off to 3 wins anyway domestically. We've won a League Cup game against Falkirk, and obviously we've beat Aberdeen, we've beat Swindon. But then the wheels would begin to wobble, Ian, because after the Falkirk game, we'd had it moved to the Friday night because we were actually going to be playing a Tuesday night Champions League game. So we got our game brought forward to give us the 3 days rest, because we were playing Kairat Almaty, the lowest ranked team in this season's Champions League. They came from the first round of qualifiers and had gotten all the way to the playoff round. They had beaten, I want to say, Slovan Bratislava, who we'd played the season before in the Champions League, and we'd beat them pretty comfortably, but they got by Slovan in the third round. We're like, okay, it's a Kazakhstani team. They are nearer the Chinese border than any European country border. That's how far we were going for this tie. But they came to Celtic Park and they just did what many teams can do against Celtic, especially when the horseshoe kicks in. We just run out of ideas, we run out of goals, and we just pass it sideways and back the way, because you've got 10 men just defending for their lives. This is the biggest tie this team will ever play. They're on the cusp of getting to the Champions League, and they dug their heels in, they time wasted. They showed the streetwise qualities, that teams do when they come here in the European competitions. We took the bait constantly, kept giving away free kicks and breaking up the play. And yeah, it ended 0-0. So that was a worrying sign right there. 0-0 at home against Kairat. But obviously there's still a second leg still to come. We did beat Livingston 3-0 in between that to at least get some goals under our belt. But I don't think any strikers had scored yet. I remember Nygren scored 2 that day. But yeah, we beat Livingston 3-0. And then the second leg came against Kairat, and Jesus, 0-0 again. Daiza Maeda misses a one-on-one chance in the 89th minute to go and win it and get us through. It goes all the way through to penalties, and yeah, we stink it out on penalties and end up losing, and there'll be no Champions League at Celtic this season. We will have to make do with the Europa League, Liam, and yeah, putting ourselves back in the mindset at that point in time. Sickened is an understatement.
Second, it turned into anger. You look at that Almighty game as being that was the crux. That was the one bit where you started to question everything, and not just the board, but some of the players that we had as well. We were looking at players, if they were actually into it, if they were playing for Rodgers. And then there was Rodgers himself, where a lot of people didn't want to, we still had this elite manager tag on him at that point. That he's one of these best managers in the games, and he did well with us before, and I know he was an invincible and all that, but I always said he was one of these guys that had a 3-year deal with a 2-year plan. Eventually when teams start figuring him out, and when teams figure him out and they start with that low block, he didn't know how to readjust his team. We talk about the stubbornness of the guy across the road there, Martin. Rodgers came out very stubborn, and I looked at that. Those two not being able to score a goal against Almaty, I think that was the start where everybody started questions, and those questions started turning into anger, and you could just sort of see and tell that he wasn't into it. There's something wrong going on the board, and I think Rodgers at that point, we talked about Maeda down tools. I think Rodgers definitely down tools. He didn't look like he was. I don't know.
Liam, do you remember the tie? Remember the tie debacle? We didn't wear the club tie for the Aberdeen game, and people were saying, "Remember that?" He was like, it's hot on the sideline. I'm not wearing the tie, but in the end, there was definitely cracks there. We said things like that did actually mean something. He was trying to, because he was always very subliminal. Brendan Rodgers was sending messages, but yeah, remember the whole tie debacle up at Aberdeen? That's mad. Get back to me.
Anyway, I mean, we'll get to his departure soon enough because are we in October yet?
Oh yeah, well, what happened next after the Kairat games? We followed up with another absolutely generational stinker. Again, we drew 0-0 with Rangers. Russell Martin's Rangers, because at this point have drawn with Motherwell. They've drawn, I think it was either Falkirk or Dundee. It was Dundee, because Stephen Presley was manager. Dundee got a draw at Ibrox, and yeah, they drew 0-0 with us. A horrific Glasgow derby, absolutely stinking game. The only thing that happened in the game was John Souttar scored a goal that was deemed offside at a free kick that came in. other than that, it took us till about 70-something minutes to get a shot on goal. They were thinking, and this is a Rangers team that had also just lost, I believe, 9-1 on aggregate to Club Brugge in the Champions League qualifiers. Yeah, we just didn't even trouble them at all. Dreadful game. And of course, at this point, Hearts have now jumped into top spot. That'll be very, very important going forward. Celtic would, of course, drop into the Europa League, as I say, and they would draw in their league section AS Roma, Braga, Sturm Graz, Utrecht, Feyenoord, Red Star Belgrade, Midtjylland, and Bologna. It's not a bad group standard-wise, but there was a massively sour taste in the mouth because of who we lost to and the manner we lost to, because, spoiler, Kairat would be absolute dog meat in the Champions League. They would only record 1 point. And it was against another team that were debuting in the Champions League. They drew 0-0 with a Cypriot team in their first Champions League venture. The two literal worst teams in the entire Champions League were playing each other in the group stages. They drew 0-0, and that was the only point that Kairat got. Every other game, they get absolutely horsed off of teams like Arsenal, Real Madrid, and all the other big boys that they played. But anyway, Celtic come back from the international break, and they play Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. And again, a running theme of the season about late goals. Talk about late goals and penalty drama, VAR drama, John Beaton drama, because John Beaton was a referee for this game as well. We are at 1 each with Kilmarnock, deep into stoppage time. And yeah, James Forrest has a shot, it just breaks to him in the box. He has a shot, and the Kilmarnock player goes to block it. But the way he twists his body, it hits his arm. And yeah, we get a VAR review. John Beaton goes to the monitor. This will be significant later on in the story, but John Beaton goes over. And again, as Celtic fans, we're conditioned to be like, he's not giving this. John Beaton, are you kidding me, Mr. Crown Bar, Bells Hill? He's not giving this penalty. Nut comes back. Penalty. Points to the spot. You're like, oh my God. Up steps Kelechi Iheanacho, cool as you like, in like the 95th minute, whatever it was. And again, this would repeat itself later on, but yeah, he tucks it away. First time we get to see Kelechi Iheanacho score a goal. But yeah, it gives an early indication, Liam, this is a guy that is cool under pressure, to say the least, mate.
Ice, man. Ice in his veins, you know. And John Beaton, I think John Beaton was trying to get himself to North America for the World Cup or something. He seemed to put his old biases aside this year, and he's one of my biggest surprises of the season was actually John Beaton actually made some credible calls that, I always had him as a really, I didn't ever think he was a bad referee. I always thought he was biased. Like some referees that are bad. Like I watched Don Robertson referee and he misses half the game. You know, he's just out of the pitch at the time. You know, the other one as well is Clancy. Clancy's another one that sees fouls in there. Yeah. He's trying to anticipate the game and trying to be part of it. Whereas Beaton actually does a pretty good job at refereeing it. But, you know, I used to think he's very biased in a sense. But, I mean, the stats this year might say he's probably the best referee we could hope for going in right now as far as being unbiased, as far as being able to award us the things that we should be getting. Because a lot of them seem to ignore it this year. And, he might have help for the VAR, but even VAR, that was Andrew Dallas. So,
that's right. They were always a wee tandem, weren't they? They were always put together. Yeah.
But, it's the referees are getting called out this year. I don't think they were any worse than any other season they've ever been. But a lot of decisions favour Celtic. And so that lit up the phone boards and that lit up, the keyboard warriors and the podcasters and that wanted to come out and make it like all of a sudden we've really hit rock bottom with referees, whereas most of them are just angry because they were actually making the right calls, some of the right calls this year. And I mean, we still had plenty of howlers, but Beaton was an interesting one to watch this year. I mean, he might revert back to form next year. Who knows? He'll have a word in the lodge or whatever and that. But I was surprised we got that. That was the very first one with that Forrest when he took that shot and getting that handball. Where I thought, I don't know, don't think we would have normally got that with John Beaton, you know.
Yeah, it was interesting. I want to say we're all that conditions, just think he gave us nothing, but no, to much surprise, he gave us a penalty. In terms of after that, with Rugby Park, we won 2-1, but then drew 0-0 with Hibs in a stinking game, and we then beat Motherwell 3-2, another very late victory. Daizen Maeda scored a diving header. He had to get down very low. Balakisha's only contribution this season was that assist. So in the end, can you say Balakisha helped us win the league? I probably did, because they had 2 extra points, got us over the line. So well done, Balakisha, you contributed. Also sandwiched in amongst there was a 1-1 draw with Red Star Belgrade in the Europa League. We also lost 2-0 at home to Braga in the Europa League, which Kasper Schmichel showed that there's definitely some issues there with his arm, which would come back to haunt us as well. We also beat Partick Thistle 4-0 in the League Cup round of 16, or maybe quarterfinals it was. But anyway, we got through that. But then the wheels began to come off after that, because we got up to Dens Park. Now, we haven't lost against Dundee on their turf since 1988, I believe it was. But no. Not on this day. Things were about to change. We didn't even lay a glove on Dundee. They had started the season horrifically, other than getting a draw at Ibrox, which came as a bit of a surprise given how Dundee started. And literally, Dundee fans were revolting at the idea of Stephen Presley as a manager. They were furious. Presley ended up being quite a decent manager for them in the end, but they were raging. And yeah, they had a terrible start. So the only team they had beat up to that point was Livingston, who were absolutely garbage. That was the only team they'd beat. And yeah, then Celtic just roll into town and say, "Do you know what, Livingston, we're going to help you out here, and we're going to take a beating off Dundee." We were utterly garbage that day. We did not get near them. We made Dundee look exceptional. They beat us 2-0. And yeah, Brendan Rodgers, of course, then made the comment after the game, you can't roll up to a race with a Honda Civic and expect it to drive like a Ferrari. And that would become a running theme for the season. The Honda Civic comment and the Ferrari comment, again, it was just him going back with the cryptic words, again, venting about the transfer window, which again, you don't need to tell us. We know how bad it was. We commented on it many times. But yeah, it was coming home to roost. We were absolutely horrific. But regardless of how bad the transfer window would have been, it was Dundee we were playing. Dundee. We shouldn't be losing to Dundee. I'm sorry. We just shouldn't. But yeah, we absolutely phoned it in that day. We could beat. In the midweek that followed, we did beat Sturm Graz in the Europa League, where it was like, okay, maybe things are turning around here, or we've shown a wee bit of fight. Maybe the Dundee game was a blip. But no, we then roll into Tynecastle on the Sunday, Liam, and they dust us aside. Dane Murray starts that game. Austin Trusty has been completely outcasted. He's nowhere to be seen. But yeah, Dane Murray starts, and generational stinker, to say the least. He scores an own goal. He is definitely culpable for the second goal, I want to say, because Reedus cuts in, beats Ralston, then hits a shot, and he turns away from it. At least Schmeichel unsighted, although Schmeichel was rubbish in that as well. And then I think Dane Murray gives away the penalty minutes later, and Shankland makes it free. And yeah, we were dusted aside. So Hearts extended the lead, I think, to 8 points at that stage in the season. And the next day, Brendan Rodgers was gone. The Monday night, Brendan Rodgers was departed and Martin O'Neill was coming back. But that wasn't the biggest story, because, no. Why would it be, Liam? With the way this season went, why would the manager leaving be the story here? Why would Martin O'Neill coming back be the story? No. Dermot Desmond had main character syndrome, and he had something to say. That statement will live in infamy forever, mate. Surreal moment.
I mean, he was given the login keys to the communications channel at that point. First of all, we shouldn't be making statements like that on club channels and things. Just everything, the entire optics of that was just wrong. And what it did is it brought Dermot into the firing line, because now he was putting his head up above the parapet and engaging with the club. Okay, so now you're engaging. So what else can we expect from you? Can we expect any leadership? Can we expect any accountability? None of all that. It seems like he got his butt hurt by something Rodgers said to him and that. And for him to come out and characterise Rodgers like that, every fan picked up on it. Every podcast took that statement and just, went through it line by line and just revealed it for the pettiness and, just the misalignment of priorities of where Desmond should be. As Martin O'Neill likes to call, this is my only grievance against Martin O'Neill: stop calling him our owner. We're not owned. We're not owned by him. And the more we keep using that sort of language, I'm surprised at Martin, because Martin's a lawyer, and language is very important to lawyers. And he's not a loaner. He's not an owner. He's a majority shareholder with 36% or something. And yeah, for him to come out and do that and Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised that we haven't heard anything back from Rodgers and that, because it was
Aye.
quite damning, because he was accusing Rodgers of was it leaking stuff to the press, and
Yeah.
and behaving inappropriately and all that.
Mm.
And yet,
Self-preservation were the words that were used. It was one
yeah,
man's desire for self-preservation that's been the problem, talking about Brendan Rodgers.
and it was Rodgers was no angel in this whole entire thing. He was, he does have that, but that message coming from the absentee landlord just didn't sit right with us, and it didn't sit right, I think, with most of the fans.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was just see, in terms of departures, we've seen managers come and go, but this was biblical in the way it ended. We watched Brendan leave in 2019, and it didn't get this much vitriol from the club. They would have been more right to be angry at him in 2019 walking out, but yeah, this was incredible, that statement. And same things like, what hasn't failed us, our methods is not what failed us over the years. They're bigging up their transfer policy despite how bad the transfer window looked, and it would continue to be bad in January. Absolutely wild scenes at that statement. And yeah, I can still remember the live reactions that night. I can remember I was watching Ryan 118. He was live streaming that night when it all broke, and he was reading that statement, and he was losing his mind reading it. Like, this is incredible. Like, what they're saying here, a total character assassination, complete character assassination on Brendan. But yeah, he would disappear. He'd eventually take a job in Saudi Arabia, where he still is to this day. But Martin O'Neill is back. What a surreal feeling. He hadn't managed at Celtic since 2005. His last game was the 2005 Scottish Cup final. Obviously, his last league game was Helicopter Sunday. But yeah, he hadn't had an actual job in football in terms of management since a stint with Nottingham Forest only lasted a couple of months in 2019. He had spent the best part of the last 6 or so years just as a media personality, a pundit on TalkSport, very, very much in the category of has no time for analytics, data analysis, sports science, XG. He says it's a load of nonsense. He doesn't care for it. He likes to keep it simple. Fair enough. I understand the rationale, but in the modern day game, there is a place for it. But yeah, he was very much obviously the opinion that don't need it. He also made comments the day before. It was that he was the week before, he'd said something about Rangers won't even be a threat this season. Hearts, he'd actually bigged up Hearts as winning the league this season, and then he ends up as the Celtic manager up against Hearts and a Rangers team, which he said won't be a threat this season. But yeah, they came very close to being a threat. But yeah, it was just surreal to see Martin O'Neill back. And what a start he made for the first time this season. We won 5 domestic games in a row, which was incredible. We won a very late win against St Mirren was in there. Obviously battered Falkirk 4-0, battered Kilmarnock. But yeah, 5 league victories in a row. And the only game that he lost in his spell was he lost to Midtjylland in the Europa League. And Midtjylland at that point was sitting top of the table. They looked like a team that had a plan, like Bodo Glimt. One of these teams from Scandinavia. They've got good structure, good investment. They know what they're doing. But yeah, he lost 3-1 to them. But then he balanced it out by doing something that we don't normally do, Liam. He won away from home in Europe. And I could be wrong in saying this, but I think it's also in the actual competition, because he did win a qualifier away from home to Ajax. But yeah, in terms of the competition when it starts, that was the first away win that Martin O'Neill had in the group stage, effectively. Beat Feyenoord 3-1. And regardless at the time, people saying, Feyenoord, they were running in the best place. I think they were only like 5 points behind PSV Eindhoven. They were second in the Eredivisie, which is a better league than the Scottish Premiership. I was blown away that night how well we played. I was like, oh man, this is the Celtic we waited for all season. But yeah, he also goes on and beats Hibs in his final game. It was a quite scrappy 1-0 win against Dundee. But during this time, I do remember this story as well. Around about the time that Martin was there, he kept on hammering home, this is just temporary. I'm not going to be here beyond, whenever they need me. I'm only here for short term. Gordon Strachan, do you remember Gordon Strachan was doing like after dinner speaking or something like that? He was doing some kind of event with Tam Cowan hosting it. And he said in a few of these events he did round Glasgow, he knows for a fact that Celtic have got their man already lined up. They just can't announce him until the end of November because the current team he's with are still in their season. So it now narrowed it down. This name, Wilfried Nancy, kept coming up from Columbus Crew. The MLS runs from March to November. So a lot of people thinking, is it him? It looks like it's going to be him because there was a whole link to Paul Tisdale, which people were, putting 2 and 2 together on that one. The other one, though, that people were clamouring for was obviously Knutson, the Bodo Glimt manager, because they also have a season that runs from March to November. Sadly, fans would be let down. It wouldn't be Knutson in the end. It would be Wilfried Nancy. But at the time, again, putting my head back in where I was at that point, I was quite happy to see, right, we've made a left field appointment, something different, it's something bold. I'll give it a chance. Because again, I didn't know much about him, but again, I didn't know much about Ange Postecoglou. But again, it was like, well, we'll give it a chance. We'll see what it is. This could be a shrewd move from Celtic. But see, the night we played Dundee, we beat them 1-0 at the Wednesday night game, and that was Martin O'Neill's last game at that point. He did a speech after the game, and something inside me was like, this feels wrong. Like, this was wrong. Because obviously he was bailing out before the Hearts game. We were playing Hearts in a top of the table clash because he'd narrowed the gap to 0 points. We were only behind on goal difference. He had got his foot at the League Cup final. We played in St Mirren in 2 weeks' time. We had a blockbuster Europa League tie against Roma coming up after beating Feyenoord, and that was the next 3 games. But when Martin O'Neill gave that speech, I was like, something feels wrong about this. Like, this isn't the right move we're making. He should be staying. But yeah, obviously we didn't know what was to come in the next few weeks, Liam. But at that point in time, were you suddenly like, actually, I kind of wish O'Neill was staying?
Well, you know what, I'd like to say, yeah, I'd said that. But if you go back and you look at any of the previous podcasts I was on, I think a lot of us were looking at Martin was a cameo. Martin was a cameo. They came in and it made us all feel warm and fuzzy and nostalgic. And, you know, it was like a good fit. I said it, you know, one of the podcasts when he came back after a couple of games. It was like finding an old leather jacket in the back of your cupboard that still fit. And then it actually looked amazing on now, you know, and that's what it was like when Martin O'Neill came back. It just looked like he fit. He fit Celtic. All of a sudden, the way he started talking to the press, there was a humility to him, but also a father figure in a way as well. And what it did, I think it was that point, it united a lot of the fans, even just generationally. There was a chance for fathers and older brothers and that could talk to people and, you know, because people said, what was Martin O'Neill like as a manager? And a lot of younger people and younger fans got to see what he was like and experience what Martin was like. And my biggest surprise of the whole management situation was that amount people immediately took to Mark Fotheringham. He became a cult hero right from the beginning, and I think it shows you how powerful and how viral media can be when, you know, they released that thing with him talking about intensity and this and that. And I think that gave the fans a bit of hope as well. And, you know, I remember him as a player, you know, back in the days when I was on like Celtic Minded and the huddle board, and there was always people talking about Mark Fotheringham playing with the youth team and what a great player he was. And I was surprised that he had that connection with Martin O'Neill, that he came in. And right away too, I remember there was one game that we had, and I think it was Nicholas Kuhn scored an absolute cracker from the 18-yard line, and the first man he ran over to, he bypassed a lot of the teammates to go out to the sidelines, and he gave Fozzie a big hug. I mean, no since Fozzie Bear and the Muppets have I seen a better Fozzie than big Mark Fotheringham, and I was glad. Like Maloney, I was always a bit. I didn't have a lot. I always thought Maloney was a grumpy wee guy, and I was always still pissed off at him for that, you know, satellite a free kick he launched, you know, against Porto and that, you know, and but Fozzie was a breath of fresh air coming in, and I thought that was good as well, and I think that tempered Martin's approach as well too. It just shows you, he knows how to pick a management team. He knows how to lead. He's a very, very good leader, Martin O'Neill. And those first games he was back, I thought Luke McCowan upped his game. He started getting. Johnny Kenny also started looking pretty good.
Johnny Kenny, that's right. Johnny Kenny, yeah.
And Liam Scales. Liam Scales got more responsibility. And Liam ended up the place this year, in my opinion, something negative. But, you know, I think when we look back in the season, we'll see what a vital player he is. I think it's just the type of football we play for. Scales is rang. You know, we need a different role for him. He can't be the one taking the ball out. But and then getting to Wilfried Nancy. Well, you know, I'm over here on this side of the world, and I've always been like very pro, you know, MLS. You know, I'll look at some of it. You know, like Messi didn't do what Ronaldo did, like in the Saudi Arabian league, and there was a lot of people making a parallel between the two of them. And I think the MLS is a much better league than the Saudi league. And I thought, okay, well, maybe getting a guy for that league with fresh ideas and new ideas would be good. But similar to a recruitment pattern, we went for a guy that didn't have like a positive end to what he just finished.
Yeah.
His best years was 2 or 3 seasons before that when Columbus won the cup.
Yeah.
He'd something like, I think he came in 17th or something in that year, and that's always one of the things that our board likes to do. Is they like to reward guys that have had a shit season and bringing them, thinking that somehow they're going to turn it around with Celtic. And yeah, that was the thing. I want to get guys that are like busting the net. I want to get somebody that just you nip in fast and you try and secure a deal with somebody that's on its way up, where they've just had a great season. Daizan Maeda, classic example. He had a fantastic season in Japan, knocking on the national door squad, being part of that, having a good Euros and stuff, and we were able to get him in. And I can't think of another player that came from that. We signed Adam Ida. I think he was the third or fourth choice striker for Norwich.
He was something like that. Yeah, you're right.
I think we should be banned at ever dealing with Norwich players. Like for the Scotland team, anybody even Rangers. Picking up these Norwich players for some reason. It was a new thing. It was like a flat cap or something. And having a Norwich player in your team, I think, is a recipe for disaster.
That's one way of putting it. Although interestingly, that Visgarden plays for Norwich nowadays. I wonder if he will end up with us eventually through Norwich. Jesus. But back to the Wilfried Nancy saga, another thing as well was the AGM that never happened also was around about this time. Total farce. Obviously, a speech was made by Ross Desmond that, again, lives in infamy, much like his dad's statement on Brendan Rodgers' departure. Ross Desmond read out a part of a statement about just laid into the fans and made a point about fans don't understand that the landscape has changed in European football and we can no longer compete. As the season would go on, Bodo Glimt would come along and they would, with less resources than us, they'd play in the Arctic Circle in front of about 5,000 fans week in, week out. Would beat Atletico Madrid, they'd beat Man City, they'd beat Inter Milan, they would take Sporting Lisbon all the way, and they would be in the round of 16, I think, of the Champions League or the quarterfinals, something like that. It's like, yeah, we can compete though. We can't take these types of scalps. Keep in mind, a year before, we'd given Bayern Munich a real run for their money, and it's like, well, we can definitely compete and at least maybe get a big win here and there. That's all we're asking. We're not saying we want to win the Champions League. We're never going to do that, right? But yeah, it's mental that statement came out. So that happened as well. But here's the thing as well. It's the easiest layup imaginable for Wilfried Nancy coming in. I say Martin O'Neill has done all the donkey work here, Liam. He's got the lead back down to 0 points. Hearts are only ahead on goal difference. The next league fixture is Hearts at Celtic Park. He's got us through to a League Cup final after beating Rangers pretty handily in the semi-final. We are playing 9th placed St Mirren, and we've got a blockbuster tie against Roma in the Europa League after beating Feyenoord 3-1 and getting ourselves back into this competition. It's at Celtic Park. It'll be under the lights. It's a European night. It's got all the ingredients for the classic Celtic European night, and it's like Wilfried Nancy could not have asked for a better layup at all. This was a tap-in. This was easy peasy. And then literally just throw a match into a bin. A bin fire just started and it never went out. My God. From minute one, everything fell off. The unveiling of him, there was no big grand press conference, no Peter Lawwell and Michael Nicholson sitting alongside their man, bigging him up. He was basically thrown to the wolves. He rolled up in a taxi, essentially at Lennoxtown. There was a video of him getting out and hugging Michael Nicholson. Then this awkward video where he's walking around, getting introduced to the players, and James Forrest is just kind of looking at him like, who are you? Like, there was no order to this guy at all. None. There's no way you felt like this guy can command a room. This is a guy that walks in and he's got that statesman way about him, like an Ange Postecoglou does, where he walks in and you go, he's the boss. He's in charge. You can tell. Brendan Rodgers had that aura. Martin O'Neill's got that aura where you just look at them and go, they just command the sort of the room. But this guy, no, he's not got it at all. He wanted to play 3-4-3. That was what he was known for. That was his formation. it was very reliant on the two wide centre-backs getting forward to support the attack. So as we would witness with our own eyes, we would end up in scenarios where Austin Trusty would be the only Celtic player back in our half, only outfield player, because, he was asking the two wide centre-backs to get forward. In some cases, he was playing full-backs there, like Anthony Ralston and Kieran Tierney. And, it was just, again, recipe for disaster. So, how does this tenure start? Well, we lose 2-1 to Hearts at Celtic Park, and they extend their lead. They push us back to arm's length. So that was also an annoyance. But again, it's first game. You're like, okay, it's still December. There's a long way to go. Hearts aren't going to win this. Hearts are going to fall away. Hearts are going to run out of steam. We don't need to worry about them. We'll be fine. Rangers are still a good bit behind us. They're the team we need to watch. Because I think at this point, they've appointed Danny Rose. So they're starting to get a few wins now. But they're still a wee bit behind us. But then he goes and follows that up. We play Roma. Roma dusted aside 3-0. But again, you can go, right, okay, it's Roma. They're one of the best teams in the competition. We've not been great this season. We're still in it now as it is. But, but then St Mirren, 9th place St Mirren League Cup final. And you'd think we were the team that were up near the top of the league. And they were, and we were the 9th place team. I've never seen such a comfortable victory for one of the quote-unquote smaller teams in the Scottish Premiership against us. Let's say Hearts beat us 3-1 early in the season, and Hearts are obviously up there 5-0, but it's St Mirren. They could have beat us by whatever they wanted that day. We were an absolute champ. We lost a goal within the first minute, if I remember right. And then Wilfried Nancy made a crazy unhinged comment in his post-match interview. But one, he made a comment about, it's not about winning and losing. And it's like, well, it is, because there was a trophy on the line, so it's about that. But he also said he was happy with the start. And I was like, start? We lost a goal after 90 seconds. Marcus Fraser scored a header at a corner. What were you happy about in that 90 seconds, you madman? So, and they just took us apart. We got level through Hatate, but it never felt like at any point we were in control of that game. We had no coordination at all. And then, just to make it even worse, we then roll up to Tannadice in the next league game, which was a very vital game in hand. It's like, okay, we lost to Hearts. This is a game in hand. We can get back on track here. We lost there too. Dundee United, who had beat us twice this season. So don't let a Rangers fan or a Jambo tell you that Jim Goodwin does not try against Celtic. He's got 2 wins against us this season. It very nearly cost us the title. But we roll up to Dundee United. We're 1-0 up at the break. We're playing really well. We missed about 5 gilt-edged chances. Johnny Kenny alone could have scored a hat-trick. And in the second half, we completely capitulate, which would, of course, become a running theme, Liam, under Mr. Nancy. Monsieur Nancy.
I remember a couple of things. I was starting to feel sorry for him at one point. There was that one image of him in a McDonald's with his family that came over, and it was shot through the window. I think it was a fright, and he just looked so sad. I mean, the most unhappiest Happy Meal I've ever seen him to eat, And he just said a lot of the wrong things, and it looked like the club was too big for him. Just like Jock Stein says with his shirt being too big, you could tell that this club was too big for him. And again, he didn't have the thing. I mean, we keep forgetting he's French, right? He's no North American. He just coached in North America.
Yeah.
But that was his only team. And he was Terry Henry's understudy, and we were hoping maybe some of that would rub off. And there was a couple of comments with Terry Henry saying, oh, yeah, this guy's a great manager. It was funny. Alistair Johnson came out this week and said he felt really sorry that Wilfried Nancy is a much better manager than he showed at Celtic. Unfortunately, I think Alistair Johnson was injured during his entire run and didn't get a chance to play for his old boss again. But he was out of it. The other thing that happened around about that time, Phil, was we started to shift focus not just on Nancy, but people started digging into Paul Tisdale and what his accomplishments actually were. How did we end up with him? How did he get so much authority? With Rodgers going, there seemed to be a rift between those two. John Kennedy left as well because John Kennedy had a hand in identifying the players, and Tisdale told him, no, you stay in your lane. I'm doing this. And I think that's what ended up with Kennedy leaving with Rodgers as well. But the more scrutiny that we found out about Tisdale was this was a guy that was basically appointed a Strachan wedding. And it just stunk of every bit of nepotism, every single thing that's really brought this club to his knees in the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
We this family. It's like the Sopranos. At Celtic Park here, we've got the Sopranos, the Colangelos, and it's the Strackens, the Lyles.
See, Sopranos, I'd be Polly Walnuts with the silver on the side of my hair. Definitely, I'd be Polly, without a doubt. Point like that, everybody. I'd definitely be him, mate.
I want to be Big Furio. Furio's near my speed.
Oh, you've got the same hair as Furio. Get a Napoli trackie on, mate. Mate.
I love a Napoli tracksuit.
Oh, yeah, I can see it, man. Furio. Perfect.
My favourite Sopranos character. Fucking golf. Stupid fucking game, golf.
Oh man, but no, it's good to get a Sopranos reference in there. But no, you're right about the nepotism, the Strachan thing as well. God, Gavin Strachan is also still around in all this. He just never goes away. He's always there. But yeah, the appointment that Vika Tisdale, obviously we would find out the footballing doctor, as he was known, was a wee trilby hat that he wore. But yeah, he was found out to be the charlatan that he is. But hey, don't worry, Liam, because things suddenly turned around after we lost at the end. We won 2 games in a row, mate. You got to remember these points did contribute to us winning the title. We cannot overlook that fact because every point counted at the end of the season. We did manage to beat a really poor Aberdeen side. We were drawing 1 each for them, and then they went down to 10 men, if you remember right, because we had dominated the game. I remember being at Celtic Park. We had dominated it. And then Aberdeen, with their first attack in the second half, they managed to get an equaliser, just a simple through ball, right through the middle, just split the defence, boom, no problem, 1 each. But then they go down to 10 men, and we scored 2 very late goals for James Forrest and Kieran Tierney to win it 3-1. And then we have an absolutely chaotic game against Livingston, where it was 2 each after, 9 minutes or something? It was absolute insanity. I think their right back scored 2 goals. 2 absolutely blinding goals. One of them, we just blasted it for about 8 yards out because Yang and Ralston, between the 2 of them, just didn't know how to close him down, and they left it wide open. He just runs through like a train and just one-on-one with Sinisalo and just puts his laces through it and just blasts it in, and then he goes and gets another one. I say Yang, I think Negrin scored a good goal in that game, if I remember right as well. But yeah, 4-2, we end up winning it. Guesses the points, but then, Jesus Christ, we played Motherwell in a midweek game just before we play Rangers in the New Year game. Christ almighty, we were talking about at the start of the show, I mentioned, look out for Jens Bertolascu. That could be an intriguing one. We saw what Motherwell and Jens Bertolascu were all about because there was been a lot of buzz about them this season. We'd already beat them early in the season. One of the goals that we scored, the goalkeepers tried to play fancy football out from the back and passed it right to Benjamin Negrin. But Ascu, it was very much, we're going to play this way, we're going to keep playing this way, I'm going to stick to my guns. And they were unbelievable that night. I mean, as bad as we were at Fir Park that night, Motherwell, you were sitting up and going, Jesus Christ, they are good. Elijah Just, obviously Mazvanise, Saeed, Elliot Watt into it. And you're just like, what? They beat us 2-0. They could have beat us by about 4 or 5 that night. We were awful. Of course, there's a famous moment where at the end of the game where the Celtic players are just looking shell-shocked. Camera zooms in on Luke McCown, who become quite a mouthpiece this season, where he basically says the words, I'm fucking done with this. That's what he says. It's clear the lip readers could see it as I'm done with this shit or whatever it was. But yeah, it's like he was, saying what needed to be said, and he would say what needed to be said after the next game because we played Rangers in the New Year game. If Rangers were to win this game, they would go level points. Just keep in mind the points that they had hemorrhaged at the start of the season under Russell Martin. They caught up to us to the point where if they beat us here, they will go level points with us. They did beat us. Yang did score a wonder goal in the first half, but again, as had been the case, Celtic ran out of steam. They ran out of ideas. They just did something wrong in the second half. Whatever Wilfried Nancy decided to implement, it completely fell on its face because Rangers beat us 3-1. I think the goal that summed up the shambles that it was we had a throw-in on the halfway line. Callum McGregor and Anthony Ralston. Ralston takes a short throw to McGregor, who's not ready for it. The 2 of them kind of get caught out by Chermiti, who just runs through like a freight train. And Ralston is blowing out of his arse trying to catch him. He just runs through, puts it in the net, makes it 2-1 at that point, and then Mikey Moore makes it 3-1, where Kasper Schmichel with the most pathetic attempt. Well, not even the most pathetic attempt at a dive he would do all season, but just a terrible one. But again, it showed that he's clearly carrying a shoulder injury, which we all suspected. But yeah, they beat us 3-1. Luke McCown is the only Celtic player that really speaks to the press and basically tells us everything we need to know about the players aren't happy, essentially. There was rumours going around that the players were not happy. You could see the way they were playing. This team didn't have a clue what was going on. But yeah, Luke McCown became the mouthpiece. The captain, suspiciously, wasn't saying much, interestingly, during that time. Callum McGregor seemed to lose his voice. But yeah, Luke McCown was the one that stepped up. he obviously said his piece to the press after the game. And Wilfried Nancy was sacked the next day. 33 days in charge, 33 days of absolute madness, which could have torpedoed our entire season. When you look at how that turned out, it's a miracle it ended the way it did, Liam.
25% win record. That's all you need to know. If you want to go about numbers, analytics, 25%. He could win 1 out of every 4 games. Just, that opened it up. The other thing you said about that Rangers game, I think that opened it up where there was a number of people already talking about Kasper Schmichel and his injury being more than it was. Everybody was noticing that he was having a hard time, getting his shoulder and moving quickly on that left side of his. And we could see people it was costing us goals. And there was a lot of talk in our chat on this bus about Kasper Schmichel. Is he still injured? And if he is, who's making the assessment to play him? Who's putting there? And O'Neill's got to take responsibility for that as well. Because he basically played until Kasper Schmeichel was the one that said, I can't play anymore. And we'll get to his retirement and that soon.
I remember asking you on a Friday feeling, I says, are we now at the stage, Liam, with Martin O'Neill, where players are just saying to him, I can play, boss, and he's just going, okay, I'll take a word for it. Because that's the way it came across. Where we'll go and say the Kasper Schmeichel thing is in my next set of notes for the sort of running, but that's in there. And it's like that was genuinely a feeling where it's like, is he just saying to him, I'm fit to play, and Martin O'Neill's just going, okay then, you'll play. It's like that's another thing that could have derailed our entire season. And again, how we came through it. When you look at that type of stuff happening, the medical team and everything, honestly, what a shambles. But Wilfried Nancy's gone, no more. Offski, 33 days, absolute turmoil at Celtic Park. And hey, Martin O'Neill's back again for 2.0. Insanity. Again, this club, this season, what on earth can you even say? But he comes in to try and salvage the season again. And he gets off to a good start again, another 4-0 victory. This time we did beat Dundee United. We did actually manage to beat them after they'd beaten us under Wilfried Nancy, get a 4-0 victory there. We also had a Scottish Cup victory over Auchinleck Talbot. Quite a drab game, but a victory nonetheless, and it would be crucial because we go on to win that trophy. And he did get us through in the Europa League because we beat Utrecht and we drew Bologna. So that got us through to the next round there. But of course, the big test that was coming was obviously Hearts at the end of January at Tynecastle. Now, obviously, being the January window, there's a chance to get some reinforcements in because O'Neill came in the first week of January. We'd only signed Araujo at that point on loan, so technically he was a Wilfried Nancy signing. He joined under Nancy. He made his debut against Rangers, came off the bench, but obviously it was all in vain because we were shite that day and we get battered. But yeah, obviously for the rest of the window, oh my God, Adamu, Chavanchara, Benjamin Arthur, and Vuka. That's the craziest one of all because he was meant to be a £3 million signing that was changed to a loan at the last minute for once the Celtic board got it right. And obviously Oxlade-Chamberlain joined on a free after the window closed, similar to Iheanacho. But yeah, we go to Tynecastle and we draw 2-2, but we're unlucky to draw the game because we actually played no bad. We actually contained them pretty well. Of course, there was quite a controversial red card for Austin Trusty. We were kind of backs to the wall after that. Just try to defend and just keep them out, and they scored a late equaliser. Both of their goals, again, just shows you what Hearts were all about this season. It was all about set pieces. The first goal they score, Stuart Finlay, header at the back post. He gets it down low. Kasper Schmeichel doesn't get down to it quick enough again. And then the second goal is a free kick that Dane Murray gives away out wide. If I remember correctly, we were dwelling out on the right-hand side between Dane Murray and I want to say Hatate. Whatever, those two players are basically dwelling over the ball. Because they just had to hook it away, just get it clear. We're going into stoppage time. We're heading towards the end of the game. We're 2-1 up. And they hesitated. The Hearts player nipped in and got the ball, and Murray sticks a leg out, trips him. They just whipped the free kick into the back post. And again, I think it's Finlay, heads it back across, and Claudio Braga volleys it in the middle of the box. Ends 2-2. There was actually a bit of controversy in that game as well because Benjamin Negron scored the free kick for us and he went over to celebrate with the Celtic bench and Derek McInnes wasn't having any of that. And he stormed into the Celtic technical area because apparently Big Fozzie had basically told him where to take his face during the celebrations. And yeah, he wasn't happy about that at all. Of course, we would have the last laugh at the end of the season. But yeah, we end up drawing 2-2. Hearts still keep that little lead on us. And then it goes from there. We've obviously got the infamous, remember the month that was going to end our season? Remember the 4 games in a row that was set to end our season? Because not long after Hearts had got that draw with us, They lost at St Mirren. They lost 1-0, but we had a game against Aberdeen that then got postponed due to weather. So it was like, oh, it's on the back burner now. So it got moved and it got sandwiched in a run of Stuttgart away, Rangers at home. Rangers away in the league. Then we would have Aberdeen midweek in the league, and then a Scottish Cup tie with Rangers in the quarterfinals at Ibrox. 4 away games. We were told by the media, we were told by rival fans alike, this was going to end Celtic season. This was it. Done, dusted, finished. But of course, in the run-up to that, we had 2 very, very late wins. One of the many meltdowns that happened this season. There's so many, Liam, but obviously there's one over stoppage time. Now, I don't want to sound like Captain Obvious, but here is a message to all of the Hearts fans and the Rangers fans who were seething about this, because there was this narrative that Celtic, right, get more stoppage time than anybody. So I get the feeling that these guys don't know how football works, but see, stoppage time, it works for both teams. See, when the referee or the fourth official puts up the board at the end and it says 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, Celtic are not the only team that have that 6 minutes to score. So does the other team. Because also we beat Livingston 2-1 and we beat Kilmarnock 3-2, a very, very late show. We had a Scottish Cup win against Dundee where we scored in the 95th minute. But yeah, people were losing their minds about the amount of stoppage time that we were getting, even though the other team has a stoppage time as well. And of course, a league table did come out showing the stats that Rangers on average get the most stoppage time in the season. So do what you will with the facts. But anyway, we roll in to this 4 games that's going to end our season. We'd already lost 4-1 to Stuttgart in the first leg, so the game was effectively done. The tie was over, but we went out to Germany with this could be a cricket score here. This will be a pure demoralising for us. No, we won. We beat them, and we were quite credible victory in the end. Yeah, okay, Stuttgart were already through. There was very little chance we were overturning that deficit. But Luke McCown scores a goal, 90 seconds into the game. We end up winning at 1-0. So, okay, we're out anyway. We're out of Europe, but we gave a decent show. Now, that's going to work as a confidence boost. But then we go to Ibrox on the Sunday, and Yusuf Chamiti scores a wild overhead kick. Now, I was saying this to my dad earlier on. This season alone, at the 3 big stadiums in Glasgow, you've had Scott McTominay score an overhead kick at Hampden, you've had Chamiti score an overhead kick at Ibrox, and Daisen Maeda, which we'll get to, score an overhead kick at Celtic Park. 3 overhead kicks, 3 different games, 1 season, and 3 different stadiums in the same city. That is a wild, wild fact, that one. But Chamiti puts them 1 up after 7 minutes, and we are, where it's 6s and 7s, we're completely lost. And then he makes it 2-0 no long after. And at half time, somehow we get through to half time at 2-0, and you're like, this could be whatever they want it to be. We were awful in that first half. But second half, Rio Hitati comes on and completely changes the game. We suddenly have a grip of the game, control. The usual we talk about with Rangers, one thing that gets them is their own fans giving them pressure. And because we were starting to turn the screw and dominate the game, Hitati was taking control. The Rangers fans were starting to get on top of them, and they have a very loser mentality bred by their club captain, Tavernier. And they began to crack, and obviously Kieran Tierney gets a goal back midway through the half, and suddenly we're the team in the ascendancy here. But of course, we left it late, as we did much this season, but we get another penalty, another VAR awarded penalty, Liam. A cross comes in for James Forrest. Obviously, Maeda goes up for the header, and I think it was it Fernandez or Giga handles it. He goes for a header, and it hits his arm as it was going in. It was going into the net. It's hit his arm. It stopped him going in, accidental or not. We ended up getting the penalty, but my God, Liam, the actual penalty itself, 3 bites of the cherry Rio Hitati needed. That just summed up Rio Hitati to a T. That really did. That nonchalant way that he plays at times, just to casually miss and then miss again and then follow in on the rebound and bundle it in. At the time, you're like, 2-2, we'll take it, even though ideally we had to win. But in the end, another crucial point, Liam.
I thought Hitati was going to kick on for that game. I thought O'Neill had found the right system, the right way to play him. That second half that we played, you're right. He came in and he changed that game. He was moving inside, and we weren't doing like the typical ball to Scales, to Tierney, and then maybe either release the wing or try and cut inside. No, Hitati was opening up where he was running diagonals right through the middle of the park, and they couldn't cope with that. And I was hoping that, okay, well, O'Neill's finally had a conversation or finally managed to get his message across to him of how he wants him to play. And I really thought he would have kicked on for that. He had a couple of good games after. And then it was a shame. Tati just disappeared. Yeah. My memory of that game is Tierney's goal. It was a very unusual Tierney goal because he was just in front of the penalty spot, and it was a header. Was it no, right? Where
Yep.
he managed to get himself into the middle so that ball's coming in for the left where he should be. And he was managed there to get right in there and score it. And what a celebration. You know, when you look at Tierney coming back to Glasgow and all that, you could see it all summed up in that one sort of Larson-esque type celebration, running with the arms out and just like, you know,
a great header right down into the corner. So Butland's
a
trying to get
cracker.
it, heads it back across, and it goes right down into the
Yeah.
corner. Aye, it was the cracker. And he scored again in the next game because we played Aberdeen at Pittodrie. Well, Liam Scales got a wild, unorthodox assist. Remember at the corner? It comes in and he kind of just throws a leg at it and it just falls into the path of Tierney. He scores. And then Benjamin Nygren, who, wow, what a season he had. I mean, as wild as he is and as polarised as he can be, he obviously comes up with these moments in the box where he just knows where the back of the net is. His midfield play leaves a lot to be desired, but again, his numbers in front of goal, you can't argue with. He obviously scores the second one. And we've won this game in hand. It was on the back burner, so suddenly it's like, okay, maybe we will get through this. But of course, we've got a Scottish Cup game coming up against Rangers that weekend. We're back at Ibrox again for the second time in a week. This time there will be 7,500 Celtic fans occupying the Broomloan stand for the first time since 2018, since Odsonne Edward absolutely broke their hearts. And then this game, to be summed up, was backs to the wall for 120 minutes, uncomfortable viewing to say the least. Because we did score a goal in it, but it got disallowed for VAR with Liam Scales. I think his left foot was judged to be offside. He really flicked the ball on with his head. That would have been 2 good assists in a week for Liam Scales at a corner. And Daiza Maeda heads it into the back post. It gets disallowed. Game goes on at 0-0, and it just goes all the way through second half, extra time. Rangers do score a goal through Fernandes, which he punches the ball twice in the build-up to it. Only twice did it hit his hand, even though he was giving it big licks to the Celtic fans. It's like, mate, VAR's going to nail you for this, by the way. But you see the replay again, you're like, Stonewall, twice, 2 handballs, not just 1, 2. So obviously that gets disallowed, it goes to penalties. Now, the thing is about this, I remember at the time I said this to Terry in the post-match, I'm obviously petrified of Celtic in penalties. So whenever we get a penalty in a game, just getting one awarded, I'm petrified because we have been rubbish at penalties as long as I can remember. We have got a terrible, terrible knack of them. And a penalty shootout really terrifies me with Celtic. But Sinisalu win goal gave me a new lease of life, a new sense of confidence with the penalties because I was like, I've just got a feeling with him in goal, it's going to be different. I just feel like he's got something about him, like just the way he carries himself, the way he sort of, sledges with opposition players and that. I'm like, I feel like he could be the key here. Now, in the end, the ironic twist was he didn't have to save any at all because Rangers managed to miss 2. They hit the crossbar and they ballooned 1 over the bar. And obviously Celtic go on and win the penalty shootout 4-2 in the end. Chavan Chara scores the winning one. But the 2 penalties that Rangers did score, Sinisalu got a hand on them. So again, you're like, he actually does give me confidence at a penalty compared to some of the goalies we've had over the years who get nowhere near them. Craig Gordon was always terrible for never saving a penalty. Joe Hart had a horrendous record. And obviously Kasper Schmichel has been an absolute train wreck this past season. But yes, Sinisalu did give me that confidence. But we end up beating them, and then the whole world goes mad, absolutely mad. Obviously, some Celtic fans get onto the park to celebrate, and then an army of Spider-Man masks from the Copeland Road end just come running on, and all hell breaks loose. Scottish football and the media all lose their minds, and comparisons to the 1980 Scottish Cup final that you were at, Liam, it wasn't quite that. But again, a running theme, talk about fans running on the park and meltdowns following that. But the bottom line at the end of all of that was Celtic had won. They came through these 4 games that were going to end our season. We came through them, mate.
You look at, all the behaviour issues this year that, the press has just loved to jack up. The Hearts game, the Rangers game. If you look at that game in isolation, there was more bad behaviour and stuff in that towards Celtic than anything that we've been getting accused of from all the press and Hearts with that last game we had. There was a couple of incidents. I remember the one guy having a boot at Rayo. Well, ironically, that was the last game we'd see him, and I thought he was a warrior in that game as well.
Yeah,
he looked well up for it, and at that point, I was excited to see how he was going to pan out with the rest of the season. And then there was even some other stuff as well. Was it an Albanian player? What's his name?
Oh, Bajrami, yeah.
I remember when they were going in the tunnel, one of the Celtic technical team or something had like an iPad or something, and you seen him like pushing it out of his hand. And then he had to be restrained and hugged by one of the
So he
Ibrox
did.
staff, like
Patted
a
on the
big
tummy.
baby. Like they were walking him out, and he was just so like holding him like Silence of the Lambs style. And so, as somebody said, a Silence of the Lambs, and getting him through there because he was going to explode somehow.
Yep.
And it's like, what a load of sore losers. When we get everything that we do gets amplified, and yet you look at that, you got players, you got fans, you got the guys running on with masks on, which is like already right away. And honestly, they're disguising their faces, and they all went back into their seats. None of them got lifted. I mean, there's plenty of policy and all that about, but how did as soon as you pull on a mask to run on a field, and players are getting kicked and punched and staff, there was assaults in that game.
There was.
And
One of our staff members was attacked. Yes, he was.
That's right. And so was Arroyo. You see the guy throwing the kick at Arroyo as well, right?
Yep.
And then, I think what followed that was, there was a celebration on the park, and then there was a celebration in the tune. And
there was
the fans, it was the players. And that image of Arroyo climbing up climbing across the HVAC or whatever it was he was doing. He was just monkeying across it,
He was.
And then that's one of the big puzzles of the season. What happened to him? What happened? The injury's never been explained.
Nope.
We don't know what happened in training. He was back at Bournemouth getting treatment, and then all of a sudden he was back. We seen him in the stands at Celtic Park a couple of games later.
Yep.
It's one of the weird ones that this season just goes like, when we look back at what happened to him. He was so promising. He was becoming the honey badger. He was at that point. We were looking at Alistair Johnson was going to have a hard time finding his way back into the team because he was playing so well. And it was at that point we were thinking, well, is this a chance for us to change the shape when he comes back? 3 at the back, and then play Sriracha and Arroyo. It's sort of like, like in a 5 in the middle or something. And, it's like overlapping. And it was just one of the weird ones. He came, we fell in love with him, and he just disappeared off into the night.
Aye, well, the following on from that, say the mystery of Araujo, so we'll probably never ever find out the truth on that one. But obviously, we ended up beating Motherwell 3-1, high flying Motherwell at the time. It was quite a convincing victory in the end, even though people again will say, they were doing it 10 men. But anyway, Celtic won 3-1. And then, of course, we then go to Dundee United, the cabbage patch that was Tannadice. And we had an absolute shocker. We had 2 domestic losses under O'Neill in that second stint. Obviously, we'd lost to Hibs at home, which was a bit of a shock. And we lost up at Dundee United for the second time this season. Jim Goodwin, notorious Celtic fan, as you know, the Rangers fans and the Jambos will tell you, beat us twice. So very nearly cost the title. Nice one, Jimbo. We end up losing 2-0. Completely inept performance. So many players completely off it. There's 7 league games left at this point, and it has got to be a magnificent 7 now. It cannot be any less. Curiously, the club captain, Callum McGregor, comes out and says, we can maybe win 5 or 6 to win this league. And it's like, no, mate. It needs to be 7 out of 7. There is no room for error. And of course, we're still in the Scottish Cup at this point. We've obviously got St Mirren in the Scottish Cup semi-final, who've already beat us at Hampden this season. So we're looking for revenge there. But 7 league games to go. A game against Hearts still to come, and a game against Rangers at Celtic Park. We have to win every game and hope for a couple of snookers as well along the way to help us with the results with the other 2 teams. Because, it is a 3-horse race at this point. It's going to go to the wire. It's going to go into the post-split fixtures. And, we started off, very, very similar vibes to the 07-08 season under Strachan with the 7 wins at the end of the season he needed to beat Rangers to the title. We're in the same position again. So we started off, obviously, by beating Dundee away, who we'd lost to early in the season, but we went up there and we won 2-1. Kelechi Iheanacho scores a great goal to win us the game late on. Just Sriracha swings a cross in, he just controls it with his chest, not even looking at the goal, just swings his left leg at it. And the goalkeeper is standing at their post, but he manages to find that gap between the post and the goalkeeper to put us 2-1 up, and we end up going on and winning the game. We scraped by St Mirren with a 1-0 victory. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain scored the winner at Celtic Park to give us the victory there. So again, another crucial 3 points. Second time this season, Oxlade-Chamberlain's contributed a winning goal. So again, it all counts. We would then get to the Scottish Cup semi-finals, the wee break before the post-split fixtures. A wild semi-final against St Mirren would fall. We'd be 2-0 up at half-time, and we'd all be like, oh my God, what a weird feeling this is. A 2-goal margin, and in the first half. This is not Celtic this season. But of course, the second half was Celtic this season because St Mirren came back and got it back to 2-2 with a late equaliser to take it into extra time. And then Celtic just decide to pile on the agony, put on the style, and have a 4-minute spell, 5-minute spell where they score 4 goals. Iheanacho scores 2. Benjamin Nigris scores and Luke McCownell score. We end up winning the game 6-2. Nobody could see that coming with the way the game ended at the 90 minutes. But we're through to the Scottish Cup final. We will be playing Neil Lennon's Dunfermline as well in the final, which is another narrative, another wild story from this season. But now we go into the post-split fixtures. There was a lot of narrative, a lot of hyperbole, a lot of meltdown over the fixture list itself that Celtic were favoured. There was this wild theory going around that the team that's top of the league at the split always gets a home game last. That's never been the case. It just so happens that we, more often than not, are the last game of the season at home because we're usually top and we usually win the league and they want to give us the title on the last day of the season in front of our own fans. That's usually why it happens. But Hearts are obviously up in arms. And here's the thing. Them and Rangers, their fans were up in arms for what? Celtic having 19 home games and 19 away games. For Celtic having to play Hearts twice at Tynecastle and twice at Celtic Park. For having to play Rangers twice at Ibrox and twice at Celtic Park. What's the problem? It was exactly split up how it should have been split up. So we've got Falkirk at home. We've got Hibs away. We have got Rangers at home, Motherwell away. And then we've got Hearts at home, which blew my mind that was even... I didn't even consider that the SPFL and Sky would do that. But they wanted the box office finish. My word, did they get it? But I did not think they will make the last game of the season like a combo of Rangers v Hearts, Celtic v Rangers, or even Hearts v Hibs. They'll avoid all the big derbies. The title deciders will not be in the last day, but they went for it. And yeah, it kind of worked then. So we beat Falkirk 3-1. Quite a decent performance. And this goes with Daiza Maeda's came alive. He decided he was a man on a mission. He was possessed. He scored a great goal against St Mirren in the cup game where he closed the goalkeeper down. The Daiza Maeda that we know and we love. And the same with Falkirk, where the defender dwelled on the ball too long. He closed him down and he was able to catch the goalkeeper out with a long distance goal. And then so we beat Falkirk 3-1. We then go to Easter Road and we win 2-1 there. Daiza Maeda scores again. Iheanacho scores the winner late on. Again, the corner comes in. I bigged this goal up a load of times. I love how it's just so cool. The way he chests it, lets it go up in the air, waits for it to drop, and just passes it in the net. That was Iheanacho to a T. Obviously, we end up winning that 2-1. Bit of controversy as well over VAR and Hibs equaliser. Should it have stood? Could have been very crucial in the end. It shouldn't have stood because it was a handball, but anyway, it was given. Then we go to the Rangers game. 3 games to go, and Rangers have just lost at Tynecastle in the fourth to last game. So they're hanging in now by a thread. They come to Celtic Park knowing they have to win to stay in it. Celtic get a win, Rangers are completely out, and it's a 2-horse race. And typically, the way it's gone, first half, we were pretty poor, we're pretty abject. Rangers take the lead through Mikey Moore. And then the second half, obviously Yang gets an equaliser, which got a long VAR review, which again was just weird because Yang's goal was totally fine. There was no issue, but Rangers dug their heels in about Butland having his line of sight blocked. But yeah, obviously we get back level terms 1 each, but the second half was a siege from Celtic. It was a one-way storm, and Daiza Maeda, I say, a man on a mission. Brilliant first goal. Obviously Liam Scales pings one over. Kieran Tierney does brilliant to get to the byline, keep it in play, crosses it on the volley. Daiza Maeda sneaks in there, and then obviously scores. Great strikers finish, poacher's instinct. But then 3 minutes later, time stood still. The world stood still. Daiza Maeda doing Daiza Maeda things. Tunekti's out wide on the left, and you don't know what you're going to get with Tunekti as we found this season. You just don't know what he's going to do. He does a lot of cutting inside and passing it. Doesn't hit the byline enough, but this one time, Liam, he decided to hit the byline. So he gets there, he cuts it back. Connor Barron swings a leg at it, and it comes to Maeda, who takes a touch and sets himself up for it. And then, as I say, mate, time stood still. What? I mean, I was in the stadium. I saw it at that end of the stadium as well. But Liam, mate, that moment, unbelievable.
One of the best goals I've ever seen in a Rangers Celtic game. period. Up there with the Larson chip, you know, and the nutmeg on Amoruso. I think it was absolutely quality. And at that point, I think that was the one where we had the fairy tale banner, and it looked like the fairy tale was coming through. You know, funny, Phil, there was a couple of things behind the scenes as well in that run-up, in that in those fixtures. One, the Green Brigade was allowed back in, and Celtic Park started sounding like Celtic Park again. And you can't underestimate how much effect that had on the players. We had some players that came and played with Celtic that had never experienced that. You know, and that was including European games where, you know, we used to be a fortress. We were that cauldron. And one of the things that always got us through was that sort of what they say over here as the 12th man. And that 12th man, I think, the Green Brigade, I mean, it's not just them. The whole park all chips in and all that. But it certainly was good having them back in. And Martin commented on it. Players commented on it. The other thing that was bizarre at that time, when things were going well and we were becoming the kings of last-minute wingers, and every game we were winning and it was looking good, it was an odd time where Schmeichel comes out and announces his retirement during a Man City game. Or it was just, you know, adding more stuff to a bizarre season. He announces his retirement, not through club channels, but on CBS. I was watching it here in North America, and he's coming in, having his stupid dad, talking about his retirement, and yeah, just a weird thing to kill the vibe, you know, as we're all moving forward and all that, and yeah, weird season. So anyway, but I thought Daizan was great. I thought Iheanacho looked a player. I think the cameos for Sriracha looked good. You know, and Yang, I thought Yang was very good as well too. Yang was one of the guys that came in, and I think Martin's changes, you know, some of them were like, oh shit, you know, we've taken over too many players at the same time. And give them their dues. They managed to hold on. It wasn't a pretty football. It was ugly as hell. But we won.
It was. But then everything, so Rangers are now out. They are dead in the water. They are done. They are not in the title race officially. They are out, and it is a 2-horse race. And it's not a Celtic Rangers finale. It's a Celtic and Hearts title race to the end here. So we go to the second last game, and this is the one that will live in infamy forever. This is the one that people will talk about this night, because this is the game that I think all of us were collectively afraid of. I think when we saw the fixtures and what happened to us in December, Motherwell was scaring the living bejesus out of many of us, me included. I was very anxious about this game. I wasn't worried about Hearts at home or Rangers. I was worried about the Motherwell game in between. And yeah, we go there. And obviously we start terribly. Hearts are playing Falkirk on the same night, and there is a scenario that could happen on the night where Hearts can be declared champions. If we lose and they win, they will be 4 points ahead with a game to go. They will be champions before they even came to Celtic Park. So we have to basically match or better their result, essentially. So yeah, we're getting used to that Hearts are already a goal up as well, not long after we go a goal behind. I think it was Elliot Watt that scored the opener, but it was a deflection off a trusty on McGregor, and Sinisalo was unsighted. But yeah, we were dreadful that first 20 minutes or so. But we managed to get back on level terms just before the half. Daisen Maeda, he missed a decent chance before it, but then from roughly the same angle, puts one away. A good first-time finish. Again, it just comes through him. Yang gets slide tackled, and it just breaks him, and he just finishes it first time. We go in at 1 each at the break, and you're like, okay, take a breather here, right? We're doing okay. The second half, you know, we're not brilliant, but we're starting to at least keep Motherwell at bay. We're trying to get a hold of the ball, and Benjamin Nygren, something that not enough Celtic midfielders do, he just picks the ball up on the edge of the air, breaks to him about 25 yards out, and he just swings his left leg at it, just puts his laces through it, pings it right in the top corner. Out of all the goals he scored this season, most of them have been tap-ins in the box, because again, he's got that predatory finish when he's in and around the goal mouth. But that's the best goal he scored all season. The Livingston one was good as well at Almondvale, but that one is unbelievable, especially the context of it. He puts his 2-1 up. And at that point, I felt like, I said that to Terry on the post, but I felt like that stage in the game, because we equalised around about the hour. Also, we went ahead around about the hour. And I felt, okay, we're containing them. We're not playing brilliant, but Motherwell have kind of died out here, and we're just kind of controlling the game. But then Jens Bertlascu makes a whole bunch of changes, and they get a second wind. He sticks a centre-back up front. He sticks, the number 4, I can't remember his name now, but he's sticking up front and he brings on that vegan Charles Cook that used to play for Ross County. And he's giving us all sorts of trouble in the wing. But of course, they get the equaliser in the 84th minute. And at that point in time, Celtic look dead in the water. They look like they've ran out of ideas. And it's going to end 2-2. Hearts are now 3-0 up against Falkirk. So the scenario is we're going to have to go into the last 8 and beat them by at least 3 goals or win by 3 goals to win the title. And it's like, with the way this team play, would you back us to score 3 goals? And if anything, Motherwell looks more likely to win the game on the night. So it could actually end tonight. This could be the end of the title hopes. But then the absolute madness of this season just comes out of nowhere, where we're in 4 minutes into stoppage time. I think it was 5 minutes to get added. We've got a throw in. We've not even looked that good since Motherwell have equalised. We've not even looked like we've got any urgency about us. We've got a throw in. Now, you've said before we don't take enough long throw ins, and long throw ins are in fashion nowadays. Up steps the Bricky. Up steps Tony Ralston, good old reliable Tony Ralston, Liam, and he does what you've been calling out for. Sticks a long throw into the box, and Austin Trusty tries to win a knock-on header with Sam Nicholson, the Motherwell defender. And Trusty goes down, he's holding the side of his head, and he's claiming an elbow. And at that stage, as a fan, you're like, he's just looking to get something because we're in a desperate situation. But then you do see the replay, and you see, there was an elbow there. He has went up, and he's kicked with the elbow. Is it enough to justify a penalty? But as Trusty's still moaning away, you hear the PA guy in the Motherwell Stadium say, VAR check, potential handball. And Ian Crocker, who was the commentary? It was Mark Benstead was the commentator, it wasn't Ian Crocker. He says, they're looking for handball here on VAR. And when I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. There's something, because we're all thinking it's the elbow. There's a handball. Where's the handball? And then you see it again. And when you finally have it pointed out to you, you can't miss it. He goes up for a header, but his hand comes up like this as he goes for the elbow. So as he flicks his head forward, his hand is in the way. And basically the power, they argued, how can the ball travel like that? Because he did head it, but his hand was also there. And basically he's flicked his head and the ball's away. And it's hit his hand. It's hit his hand. That's what's happened. And yeah, amazingly, John Beaton, just like the Kilmarnock game at the start of the season, goes to the monitor and comes back and gives it the penalty. And you're like, that. Again, talk about writing a story. 98 minutes on the clock. Up steps Kelechi Iheanacho, the coolest man in all of Scotland. And talk about pressure. He doesn't feel the pressure, mate. He converts it, no problem at all. And it is game on now going into the final day. This is a grandstand finish that everybody wanted. This is it. It's going to happen now. Sky wanted a box office finish. They're going to get it. But mate, the meltdown that came from this and is still rumbling on now to this day. Oh my God. Mate, I've never seen anything like it. Having to watch podcasts explaining to people how the trajectory of a ball works. 2 guys went out in the street on Twitter and videoed it of showing you how you can generate that type of power by heading the ball with your hand up here. It was an absurd few days, man, and I say it's still rumbling on now, mate.
It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing because we had the English pundits getting involved and all that. And it was like, yeah, I understand. A lot of people want Hearts to win, but Hearts won out of it. In fact, all Hearts needed was a draw. And, it's not like we've had, we put that handball of Newell when we played Hibs. Mm-hmm. Yep. It was a blatant handball that scored the goals. And you go through the season, it doesn't matter if it's the first game or the last game. There's points that shift all the time wrongly because of bad refereeing and not looking at VAR. There's stuff sometimes where you see something that's a blatant handball, like the newer one, and you just completely overlook it. Mm-hmm. I think that one was so obvious that how could you not give it? And then the meltdown, people trying to convince you what you see and what you don't see is, that's not a handball because of this, this, and this. And it's just people doing mental gymnastics to try and get you to sort of be convinced that somehow we are cheating Scottish football. That there's guys in Rangers want to get Donald Trump involved. Because here's a laugh. That was one of the craziest ones ever. Because it affects the 49ers or something like that. And
there was a post on followfollow.com where somebody said, totally unironic, some unhinged Rangers fan said, the Americans that own obviously Rangers, can they not get the FBI involved? Now, if you know who the head of the FBI is, a guy named Kash Patel, I don't think that I don't think Rangers and the woes. And the thing is, Rangers have got nothing to do with it at this point. It's Hearts and Celtic that are fighting for title. That's the most unhinged bit. But yeah, they're saying things like, can we not get the FBI involved to investigate the corruption in Scottish football? And I'm just like, what reality am I living in? Like, what's going on?
Kasper Schmichel making a visual judgment. He's got one eye's went to the shop, the other one's coming back with the change. Like, I'm looking at that. Jesus, Johnny.
Oh my God, unbelievable. So yeah, the meltdown has been spectacular. It still continues on. But yes, we do now roll into the last game of the season. It's effectively a cup final for all intents and purposes because yeah, it's winner takes all. Yes, Hearts can still draw it. That's the interesting bit about the meltdown for the Motherwell game. Hearts were still in a position to win, but a lot of people were weighing in because they just saw from the outside looking in, here's a team that's not called Celtic or Rangers that can win the Scottish Premiership for the first time in 40 years. And a lot of neutral media wanted the fairy tale ending. But hey, Celtic were generating their own fairy tale story when you look at how this season panned out. But yeah, we roll into the last game and we look nervy. I mean, the atmosphere was fantastic at Celtic Park, but we start the game pretty slow, cumbersome. Austin Trusty dwelling on the ball a lot. I mean, Derek McInnes' tactics was just let Celtic do what they're doing because all they're doing is giving the ball to Austin Trusty. He runs forward and then just passes it sideways, passes it back the way. So we didn't look like we had any ideas, but then of course something kicks us into life. Hearts take the lead just before half time. Lawrence Shankland goes in at the back post, heads one in at a corner, which again we've seen plenty of times this season. Celtic are always weak at corners, and Hearts have scored a few against us. But they take the lead, and suddenly it's like, holy shit, they might actually do this here. Like this might actually happen because we have been rotten up to now. But then the crucial moment, a huge crucial moment, we get a penalty right before the break. The first penalty that Hearts have conceded all season, and it's a handball again. Kieran Tierney goes to cross it. Kazridis slides in, his hands up like that, hits the hand. Don Robertson points to the spot. Doesn't even go to VAR. He points to the spot in real time, and VAR confirm penalty. Arnie Engel steps up, takes a horrific penalty. But it finds the net. It does squeak in, but my God, it was squeaky bum time on that one, Arnie boy. And we go in at the break, and that's a crucial moment because at half time, Derek McInnes, as I said it the other week on the post match, if I'm Derek McInnes, I'm looking to try and win the game at this point. I'm not looking for a draw. I'm like, Celtic are there to be got at. Their defence can be very fragile. Trusty and Scales don't like getting roughed up. Just go at them. Because if Hearts go 2-1 up, I don't think we come back and win it 3-2. I think if Hearts just decided to just keep going, but they didn't do that. They decided, no, we're just going to stink the game up now. We're just going to try and win this point. We're just going to try and keep the point. And we're going to win it on that. And it just doesn't work for them because they try all their time-wasting tactics, all the streetwise stuff, but they run out of steam because Celtic are the team that are trying to win it, and we're starting to, turn the screw. Martin O'Neill changes the tactics. Ironically, he goes to a formation very similar to that of Wilfried Nancy to turn that around. Callum Osmond comes on. Kelechi Iheanacho comes on. Austin Trusty gets sacrificed at the back to go to 3 at the back. And then with 4 minutes to go on the clock, the 86th minute, 86, a crucial number in the history between Celtic and Hearts, obviously. If you know, you know. Dyson Maeda obviously puts one in. Callum Osmond gets, Sirachi goes on a long run from left back. Just like this, one of these moments that makes you sit up in your seat like something's coming at the end of this. He goes on this run, beats a few Hearts players, passes the ball away, gets it back, then slots it into Callum Osmond, who whips the ball across the box, and Dyson Maeda basically toes it into the net. He gets it before Swallow, puts it in the net. The flag goes up. But hey, as long as you put it in the net, VAR's going to look at it. It'd be different if he stuck it by the post and the flag went up, then nothing's going to happen. But it's wet in the net. There's a chance here. And those minute and a half, whatever it was, Liam, waiting for that decision. Now, obviously, I'm in the stadium, so I've not got the benefit of seeing the TV replays, but obviously seeing the TV replays back, it's like, what are we even reviewing? What are we even looking at? But my God, see when Don Robertson confirms it, he gives the VAR symbol and points to the centre spot. It's like, oh my God, the noise in that stadium, the celebrations. But again, you suddenly get that feeling because I was like that. I was jumping over my mate, we're celebrating, but then it's like, wait a minute, there's going to be a lot of stoppage time here, and they only need a point. This is going to be squeaky bum time. This is going to be an uncomfortable. I thought he was going to add 10 minutes. I thought it was going to 10 minutes. We're going to go because Hearts had wasted that much time. In the end, it's 8 minutes go up, and we just can't keep the ball, Liam. Something that we've done a lot this season where we've got a lot of stoppage time, but we just seem to keep giving the ball away. We're giving away free kicks. We're just passing it right back to them. We're just constantly under pressure. They're whipping balls into the box. We're heading it away. But anyway, in the 97-something minute, they get a free kick out wide. Callum McGregor gives it away. And also they just throw everything forward. Swallow comes up from the back. The goalkeeper sent forward. It's one of these scenarios where you can see it does happen from time to time. If they commit everybody forward, including the goalie, if you get a lucky break here, you are coasting the ball into the net. The ball comes in. We head that away. It comes to Cammy Devlin on the edge of the area, the wee naff that he is. He tees up a shot and somehow Kelechi Iheanacho finds the most ridiculous burst of pace across 5 yards to close it down. It breaks right into the path of Callum McGregor. First time pass. Callum Osmond is away. You can't be offside in your own half. And I said on the post-match, I had an out-of-body experience. I had it in 2024 when Adam Vida scored, but see that moment when the penny drops and you can see we're running through here and there's nothing going to stop us. And you see all the people beginning to rise up around the stadium because they realise they're celebrating before the ball's even in the net. And it's quite ironically, and for all the struggle that we've had this season, how hard it's been for Celtic to score a goal, how rubbish we've been in the final third, the easiest goal we would score all season was the last kick of the league season. There's something quite poetic about that, mate.
We had a 3-0. I was actually surprised, like, when you seen the screen, wait a minute, there's no goalie. I was thinking, okay, you know, like, calm yourself, take him on. You've got Forestway, you've got an actual, and you're looking. Shanklin gave up. He was on his knees. He just stopped.
Yep.
The guy that took the Hearts free kick, Jesus, that was a poor free kick. Callum McGregor gave away the ball. He was the one that reached up and managed to pick it out there and headed it, but was not a good free kick at all. And you're right, it was like slow motion. And watching it was absolutely the perfect way. It wasn't a scramble and a snapshot. It was like you were watching him running. You know, and if you talk about it now, I mean, he had so much time. He could have literally stopped it on the line and wait for the amount, you know, the seconds to count down, and then get on the knees and hit it. And you know, as used to do when you were wins.
Yep. I did love Iheanacho running behind him, telling him go.
I know.
Callum Osmond, a goal against Rangers and a goal against and to win his league against Hearts. That's his 2 goals in senior football. Yeah. What a story for the young man.
And it was a fantastic goal, and you know, and then it was great. I mean, it was pandemonium in the pub where I was watching it at 6 a.m. in Vancouver time, and I mean, like, we must have woke up the whole building.
Rightfully so, mate.
And it was fantastic. It was a great way to end the season. No, we didn't end it yet, but it was just wow. It's like we did it. And we didn't expect to do it. And my God, if we were jumping about, you wonder what a relief that was in the Celtic boardroom. It's like, oh great, no. They're not going to barricade us in, or you know, like you know, burn effigies of that of us. Well, we still might, but I mean, it certainly they must have been relieved, because when you look at this season, they did everything they could to you know, mess this up as much as they possibly could. If you're giving points, I mean, Martin O'Neill, I think, came in and saved his season, our season. I heard him the other night when he was talking at a thing, and it wasn't his style of football he wanted to play. But it was the style of football that won his games. And when we need to win those 7 games, everything came together. The fans came together. We were fortunate enough where we had the correct calls and stuff that helped us move. And there was a tenacity about this team, an intensity, a fuzziness, whatever you want to call it, that we weren't going to lie down. And I think Charlie McGrew said it really well, that, you know, when you're champions and you're trying to win a league, just because you fought hard doesn't mean you deserve to win. You know, you see it in sports all the time, you see it in boxing, at UFC. You know, you can fight all you want and all you want to deserve it. But it's a fight. Nobody's going to give it to you. And that's the difference between champions and being like, you know, greeting-faced bugger like Derek McInnes, who came out there and just showed what a lack of class that guy had. Not once has he ever congratulated us or that. They spoke to so many pundits, ex-players and all that before this game. And one of the big questions they were saying, would you play for a draw? And all the ex-players and all that was saying, no. One of the most dangerous things you can do is probably play for a draw. And what did Manager of the Year do?
Play for a draw.
Yep. So it's funny. He won the Manager of the Year. He won nothing. He won absolutely nothing. Came in second. Yep. Chamiti won Goal of the Year.
That meant nothing in the end. Yep.
You know, and that's one of the things, you know, the Scottish writers or whatever it is that put this player or the player awards and all that. how can you have a Player of the Year awards and not know the outcome of the season? Because here we've given Dermot McInnes Manager of the Year, and yet when it came a chance, she had the same 7 games. If he'd have won the same 7 games the way we won the 7 games, they would have been champions.
Yeah.
And without a doubt, with points to spare. But, he messed that up as much as anything. And yet somehow he's the Scottish Manager of the Year. And it's one of they have to shift that. The timing is just wrong.
No, definitely makes a mockery of it, because Martin O'Neill should be the Manager of the Year for what he did at the age he is, and all the doubters to come in and do what he did. As you say there, it wasn't the football that he wanted to play, but in the end it was the football we needed to play. It's probably the best way to put it, and it got us there over the line. And say, mad scenes at the end. And don't, guys, I can't say this enough, and I've heard other silly podcasts say this, I'm going to just repeat what they say. Do not let any Jambo or any Rangers fan tell you that this means nothing to Celtic. There were people crying in that stadium. I was crying in that stadium. Like, it meant everything to me to win the title in the way that we did. This whole idea that because we win so much that it's just like, it's just nothing to Celtic. It doesn't mean anything at all. No, it meant everything to the 60,000 Celtic fans in that stadium and all the fans around the world. What a finish to the season it was. And yeah, there was still another trophy to be won there, Liam, because I did say earlier on, we were into the Scottish Cup final, the most unremarkable Scottish Cup run that ever was, with some of the weirdest anomalies that ever was. But yeah, we were in the Scottish Cup final. It's Neil Lennon's Dunfermline. Quite an interesting end to be Martin O'Neill against Neil Lennon. It's again one of probably the easiest games we've had all season. A 10-minute spell in the second half for Dunfermline, but they looked overawed by the situation. They just didn't rise to the occasion at all. We dust them aside 3-1. Obviously, Arnie Engels with probably the pick of the goals. Maeda chips Oxborough to put his 1-0 up. I say Engels, a net buster, a thunder bastard, one would say. And then Ian Atchell with those wild feet of his, just bamboozling the defender and the goalkeeper, put them on their arse, sent them for a hot dog, and made it 3-0. Obviously, Dunfermline got one back at the end. But yeah, Celtic end up winning the double. And in the season of all seasons, when it just seems so unlikely, yeah, here we are, Liam. Celtic somehow come through and win a double. Compared to what happened 2 years ago, where we had a kind of ropey season and came through and won the double, you thought, well, we got away with that one. But my word, Hollywood couldn't write this story, Liam. This was unbelievable from start to finish. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong at Celtic, and still somehow at the end of it, we did it. We somehow did it, mate.
You're right. It was definitely a Netflix type season, and I think this is one that we'll talk about for a while. You'd love to be a fly in the wall and make a documentary or a film of what was going on behind the scenes and what was going on in the park at the same time. And I've got a couple of movie titles as well. First one was Dude, Where's My Striker?
Yes.
That was the first one.
Still waiting for him.
Yeah, and then the other one was more towards the board and ripping off a wee bit of Ernest Hemingway, the scum also rises.
Aye, that's definitely the case for some of that lot in that boardroom. But yeah, see what a season.
So I think one of the biggest takeaways for this season is that the board got away with it. They've got away with it, and it's like you wonder. You figured, okay, if we had lost this season with that sort of consequences, there would have been a lot more scrutiny, and you still got people coming out and well, we won a double, so the board can't be that bad. And and you look at it, the division is even wider. You think that given this opportunity to sort of like, okay, listen, we've dug that out, we made the right decision in bringing in Martin O'Neill, we made a lot of bad decisions, that there would be some sort of humility, that there was some sort of like just introspection into what the season, how it panned out, and how much responsibility that they had for it. And that by the time that we had got to this point, they had done all their homework and they were ready to come out and communicate and say how we were going forward. At the end of all this, we're sitting here, we've won a double. We're a week or two into the end of the season, Rangers have signed for them a marquee style player, so they're moving already.
Mm-hmm.
We hear the odd rumours now and again, and we re-signed some players, but you know, other than Scales, none of them was really necessary to get them in paper. Yang, I'm glad we re-signed Yang because I think he's good. But we're signing players without a manager. And season tickets ended today. I'm sure you renewed yours, Phil, but you waited till the last minute. This is the third year in 5 where we've ended the deadline to tickets without a manager, without a manager being announced. That's shocking. The other thing as well is we're already hearing now as well that there's a lack of communication between the board and players. The fact that Sriracha has been talked about. He's back in Uruguay or Argentina with Boca, and nobody's talked to him about an extended contract. There's rumours that Arroyo's leaving Bournemouth for Monterrey in the Mexican League.
Yeah. I heard about that, yeah.
You know, and so, well, surely we can compete with the Mexican League.
Surely we can, yeah, you'd think.
And it just shows you there's been, you know, talk about Martin O'Neill had a meeting last week and it didn't go well. And so the meeting's been moved to next week. And I just heard that from Jim Orr on Axum, who I thought it was really good this morning. I listened to him this morning when I was getting up. I thought he had some really great points just about the fans and, you know, the whole how the season ended and all that. But yeah, and he sort of leaked it. He had some knowledge that the board have met with Martin O'Neill and it didn't go as well as they planned. And now there's going to have to be another meeting next week. But if you get to next week, you're 1 week before the World Cup. So a lot of the players, anybody that we're looking at that's going to the World Cup, well, their focus is going to be, you know, in training and preparing, and they're flying, and they're you know, they're a lot of them are training outside of the cities they're playing in. You know, some of them are training in Mexico, some USA, some up here in Canada, some in Europe. It's a very, very busy time to try and sign players, as we're often told. And, you know, the whole manager, I see the Robbie Keane odds have been slashed down. I'm so glad Steve Clark signed a Scotland contract because
you are, yeah.
And so is Connor Carr, seen him.
I'm happy as well. I'm very, very happy as well with that
you
one.
Know, yeah, like, you know, and even that's another one as well. It's weird. You've not won a point, you've not scored a goal yet, and here you're getting rewarded with a new contract. Yeah, it was a mad season, and you'd think the board had learned from it. There was also a statement for the Green Brigade today as well. The board and Hargreaves are putting pressure back on them by not allowing some of their fans to renew their season tickets. So you just keep looking at it. It's like the Teflon Don, as he used to call John Gotti in New York. That seems to be our board. And Mike Nicholson, Dermot Desmond, we got to stop referring to this guy as our owner. We're not owned by anybody. We're a club that we're meant to have owned ourselves. And that's how we started this conversation. And that's how that. And I think we need those big changes this year before we change any player.
Yeah.
You know, will Martin O'Neill come in as a manager? I made my case last week. I'd like to see him coming in as a new manager, I think, because I like the optics of him much better than anybody else that's out there. There's nobody really out there that I think gets their club and has been able to build the bridges that we need to do. Doesn't matter if, you know, Wilfried Nancy had won the MLS the year before that. He was just so out of his depth into the culture that is Celtic, the expectations that is Celtic, that at this point in our history, we need somebody who gets us, because if they don't, we're going to lose everything that we built. And what we've built is special. You know, we said it in the fairy tale. You look at our tifos, Benny Lynch, you know, fighters, all that stuff, East End of Glasgow, all that stuff, you know, Brother Wilfried, Carlton, you know, all that stuff that makes our club special. And that's the expectations their fans have. And that's the pressure that's on our club. It's not like we do expect to win all the time, and we don't get tired of it. We do not get tired of winning. We love it. It's expected. It's in our DNA. And right now, I think Martin O'Neill is the closest to that DNA that we have. And if he can get us playing Martin O'Neill type football, and we sign Martin O'Neill type players, or we get somebody in with him that's got that, you know, a younger approach to it. It might not be Sean Maloney. Sean Maloney, he didn't sign, like you mentioned as well, he wasn't happy with Sean's tactics, but they got us where we needed to be, and we're looking to reset. And I was hoping that we'd have pushed that reset button the day after
the cup final. No.
If we can sign a manager in the showers, just out of that.
Yeah.
We should have had our due diligence. We should have had all the conversations we needed to have. Should have been had. They should have been had that Monday morning, you know. But I don't know if this board goes on holiday. I don't know if the feet went up on the table and I said, "Oh, okay, let's relax and have a look at this." Because while we're relaxing, as it's shown across the city there, other teams aren't. And players like Sarachi, Arroyo, Inacho, we should be like tying some of these guys down, and first and foremost, tying down a manager, so that we're not waiting until the World Cup's ended before we start rebuilding, because we've got a hell of a rebuild.
We certainly do, and that's all the things we need to look forward to in the next. I say look forward, but we'll see what comes in the next few weeks anyway over the pre-season, because that'll wrap it up, because Liam, we've went 2 hours and 10 minutes. So there we go. It's been a long show, as expected it would be, to be fair. It could have been longer, it could have been, but no, we've done okay to get it to about 2 hours. So we'll go with that. But yeah, it's been good. I've thoroughly enjoyed being back doing this again. We haven't done this in so long. I thoroughly felt in my element tonight doing that. So I think I need to lean into, for my closing thoughts to sum this season up, I'm going to have to use inspiration from the band Talking Heads, David Byrne. So what I say to sum up this season is, you may find yourself losing 8 league games in a season. You may find yourself changing manager 4 times in a year. And you may even find yourself in a civil war with those who run the club. And then you may find yourself with 2 trophies at the end of it all. And then you may ask yourself, how did I get here? Glasgow Celtic, double winners 25-26. Same as it ever was. I've been Phil. He's been Liam. This has been Bustalgia, season 25-26. We're out here, folks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we shall catch you on the next one. And God bless the Celtic. See you later, guys. Cheers.